Hello everyone, welcome to the What If Anime YouTube channel. Today, we're diving into an exciting new story that will take your imagination to the next level. Let's get started. What if Naruto was neglected in the Fox Duke of Hell? After Anbu nearly killed Naruto, the Kyuubi used the last of the power of his soul to send Naruto to hell, hoping it would be better. Little does he know the life Naruto would gain would be so much better. Parents alive but abandoned him. But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. The 9-year-old Naruto crawled under a bush to hide from the Anbu attacking him. The Hokage had been dragged into a council meeting, and the Anbu who'd lost family saw their chance. They had burned, cut, and stabbed the boy, but the demon fox used his soul to keep him alive. Naruto lay under the bush crying as he held his face with a deep cut going down his right cheek. The burns on his arms were healing, and the blades in his back were pushed out as the wounds healed. The Kyuubi, with his powers sealed into the siblings, the boy's bastard father and whore mother, took out of the village. They even took the godparents with them to train the two brats, while he was forced to use his own life force to keep the kid alive. Even in his newly weakened state, the Kyuubi could hear them as they talked. They took the other two kids the boy was born with, another male and a female, each holding half his power. They believe one of them would be this child of prophecy who'd save the ninja world. The Kyuubi, a Duke of Hell, answered only to Lucifer and his wife and killed everything that ever got in his way. Now, he was stuck in a kit that shouldn't have to go through this. But, the Kyuubi knew that the more of his life force was forced into the boy's system, the more he'd become fox-like. The whisker marks on his face were just the beginning if he had to keep doing this. The Kyuubi could use the last of his real power and fuse them, but that would send the boy back to hell to regain the power they lacked. It would take many years to regain all they'd lost, and the chance existed that he'd vanish after the fusion. It's here. Kyuubi heard that a decision to hell with it. He'd lived for over 1,000 years, much older than most demons. 100 of them sealed away in a damn human that just wants to use his damn powers. But this kid wanted nothing to do with this and had no say in anything. The Kyuubi infused all his claws and tails with his soul, ready to stab them into the kid's own soul. Sorry, kid. Naruto panicked and then crawled farther into the bushes before pain shot through the boy's body, and screamed, making the Anbu jump back as a massive chakra blast came from Naruto's body. The bushes and a few were thrown away, and they all saw a seal under his torn up and burned shirt. A red dome started forming around him. It's finally showing itself. They were about to attack the dome before the Sandaime Hokage jumped down with Anbu dog and cat at his side. Stop, you fools! But they were all too late. Naruto vanished in a blinding light. It forced them to cover their eyes before a massive blast threw them all away. They looked up as a massive light shot up into the dark night sky. They all looked up and froze as they saw the image of the Kyuubi glaring down at them. It grinned as it looked down at them, planning to scare them all one last time as he felt his soul fading into nothingness. Thanks for freeing me from my cage. After I form, I'm destroy that village with a single attack to show some gratitude. The Kyuubi faded from existence with the joy of seeing the horrified face of the old man who'd failed his jailer. Ruins of Uzu, Minato, Kushina, Tsunade, and Jiraiya were all sitting around a dinner table trying to come up with tomorrow's training. As Minato was about to speak, 2 puffs of smoke came from the middle of the table. In the middle of the smoke were the 2 great sage toads, Lord Fukasaku and Lady Shima. Both looked extremely worried as they looked around. Minato spoke up as he looked at them. Pa, what is wrong? They looked at Minato with panic in their eyes. Minato boy, the great elder toad has said that the child of prophecy has left the living world. Are Memna and Mito okay? All of them froze as they looked at the toads. We put them down to bed not an hour ago. Then who? Kushina was about to speak before the red messenger toad Sarutobi used to get in contact with Jiraiya. He looked down sadly and spoke before he noticed the 2 great sages. Jiraiya, your teacher sent me with a message. Naruto Uzumaki, the son of your late student Minato, has been killed by a Rouge squad of Anbu, and the Kyuubi was set free to reform. It has promised the swift destruction of the village as thanks for its freedom. His body had been completely destroyed. Nothing but a destroyed shirt was left after the fox got free. He pulled the burned, cut up, bloody shirt from his small jacket. It hurt the messenger toad deeply as he looked at the shirt. Such a young life had been lost because of blind rage and hate. When he looked up, he was shocked to see the sages of his home and the now broken people around him. Ma and Pa looked at him, then Pa grew angry as he looked at the shirt. He turned and glared at Minato and Jiraiya, scaring both men. "Who is this Naruto boy? You had another tadpole, and we weren't told." Ma started to cry as she took the shirt with shaky hands. She was known for her great love for all the tadpoles of her clan, and to learn one had met with such a violent end at such a young age broke her heart. Of the clan or not, a child's death was to be mourned. Minato couldn't respond as he sat there frozen, and Kushina had fallen from her chair from the shocking news of her apparent firstborn death. Tears came to her eyes, and she covered her mouth and shook her head. Minato came out of his shock and spoke. "This wasn't what we planned. Naruto was supposed to be seen as a hero like Mena and Mataure to be when we return." Already angry, Pa jumped up, grabbed the fourth Hokage's collar, and pulled him down as he landed. "You left your tadpole to his death, you damn fool. How could you value two others over one?" Pa shook Minato as Ma ripped into Kushina and Jiraiya. Tears ran down her face as she screamed, holding the shirt to her chest as she yelled, "You stupid girl and you damn pervert. You let a young tadpole be left defenseless in a place you should have known was dangerous for him. How could you think it would be safe for him there?" Jiraiya tried to explain when Ma stopped yelling, but Pa yelled next. "No, Ma. These fools can possibly have a good reason." Pa threw Minato back, making him fall from his chair. Pa hopped back over to his wife, and he felt his heart breaking as he looked at his crying wife as she held the shirt tight in her hands. "Come on, Ma. We're going to Konoha and we'll collect what we can from the Hokage. We'll put his spirit to rest on Mount Myoboku so no human can ever bother him again." "What?" Pa and Ma glared at them, and then Pa spoke. "Mena and Mito will also not be allowed to sign our contract, and we'll speak to the slugs and make sure that they will not be allowed to sign theirs as well." Minato stood up and spoke as Tsunade tried to comfort the sobbing Kushina. "But you can't do that. You're one of Konoha's strongest summons, and you can't keep our son's memory away from us." Ma glared at Minato, and Pa stomped his foot on the table. "We can, and you and my now failure of student are forbidden to summon us or use sage mode unless it is in the most dire situations." With that said, the two toads left to find a way to put the spirit of a boy they never knew to rest. They left the shell-shocked humans to come to terms with the fact they had lost a son they never got to know due to their own actions, and that the prophecy that had started all this was now gone. Hell third Pav, a massive wave of power erupted from the forest before her and traveled through 9 rings of hell. All the ancient demons in hell shivered as a power missing from hell suddenly reappeared. But the most shocked was Lucifer as he jumped up from his throne, eyes wide as he felt his old friend's energy. Lilith, his queen, smiled as he knew one of her husband's friends must have finally returned. Gosha family estate Octavia, a 9-year-old owl girl and one of the heirs of the Gosha family, ran through her family's private forest to find a hiding place. Octavia left the house after hearing her parents fighting. As she ran, she was thrown back by the massive wave of power that erupted from the forest in front of her. Octavia, being the child she was, started walking toward the forest center, wanting to know what was happening. When she reached the forest center, she saw a young boy laying in a hole. As she walked closer, she saw he looked like a fox with a torn-up pair of black pants with 2 large pockets on both thighs. But he had 9 blood-red tails with orange tails tips and black lines going down them. But he seemed to have a more human body. He had human-looking legs, but his arms were a mix of human and fox front legs. He had hands, but his fingers ended in what looked like razor-sharp claws. The skin of his face, and she blushed. Naruto's whisker marks had grown out to become larger, with scratches marks at the edges. Around his eyes were black marks. The marks traveled up to his new ears on the top of his head. On his back were 6 spiral circles on his back, all connected by black lines. Think Naruto's Baryon mode for the face. Octavia touched his face with her hand. Not sure what to do, Octavia sat down and rested his head on her thigh. Octavia didn't know why, but she started to run her hand through Naruto's hair and felt his ears as she stroked his hair. Octavia. She looked behind her as her father burst through the trees. Octavia rested her hand on Naruto's head, but she froze along with her father as a black portal opened above the forest. They looked up as Lucifer himself fell through the portal. He crashed down in front of them and looked down at Naruto. "I see, So my old friend passed on his power and some of his soul as well. Kurama, the first Duke and true Duke of the Wrath. Lucifer looked at the young girl. He saw her holding the boy with such a soft hand, a hand Kurama was never shown or felt. Then he looks at the boy more closely. Newer and older scars could be seen once you looked close enough. Lucifer frowned as he looked at the air his friend sent. No, I will not let history repeat again. Lucifer then looked up at Stolas and spoke in a slow, calm tone. Stolas, this young demon is the heir to the title Duke and the Dukeship of Wrath. I leave him to your care for now. I'll be sending one-of-a-kind materials from the human world for him to learn from. Stolas got on one knee and bowed his head. Yes, my king. Lucifer turned and opened another portal. He looked back at Naruto out of the corner of his eye. That child, he's going to become very powerful. And those marks on his back, if those are what I think they are, he may even become more powerful than the sins and reach closer to me than Kurama ever did. Konoha, 2 days before the return of the 4th Hokage and family. Konoha, one of the 5 great nations, was in deep depression and anger. They had all been told the truth by a rage-filled 3rd Hokage. The boy that was killed was the son of the 4th Hokage and the only thing that was holding the soul of the 9 tails in check. He told them that the boy they had beaten, starved, abused, neglected, and shamed was the son of the great hero of the leaf. He'd also told them of how the 4th himself and his wife abandoned his son for his other 2 children. The civilians of the village were crushed at how they treated the true hero of the village. The ninja clans had felt unbelievable shame as they realized what they'd left Naruto to. Many had thought he could be Minato's and Kushina's son but had no proof. Now all the ninja heads were standing in front of the Hokages, having followed the order to come to the Hokage's office. Now, they stood before him as he took a puff of his pipe. He pulled the pipe away and breathed out the smoke as he looked at them all. So you all know, the 4th, his wife, children, and my last 2 students are coming back to the village. From what I understand from the elder toads, they came to take what was left of Naruto's things to put his spirit to rest where no human will disturb his spirit. The heads looked down in shame. So that's why he hasn't had a tombstone placed in the graveyard. Hiruzen looked at Sume as she spoke. What do you mean? Sume cleared her throat and spoke up. My pup Kiba and he may not have been good friends, but they were classmates and as a mother. I told him we should go and lay flowers at his grave. Many of us did, but we couldn't find one. Hiruzen looked at Shikaku Nara as he stood up and spoke his mind. Let's not forget what we all did. We all looked at the boy as if he wasn't there. And now, we have a family that we have no idea what they're capable of on the way here. And we all know that they know Naruto is dead. We need to have a plan to deal with them once they show up. Everyone hated to admit he was right, but unknown to them all, a new prophecy was given to all the great elders of all the summons, one of destruction. 3rd Pav Konoha the returned the Namikaze family and Sanin walked up to the gates of Konoha, all with different thoughts running through their minds. But all of them came to the same conclusion. They'd never have the same life they once had. The adults were no fools. They knew the news of who Naruto's parents would be and knew they'd be seen as the bad guys. As they walked up to the check-in station, Minato smiled as his last student walked out of the gate. When the 2 looked at one another, Minato rushed over, knowing his student would at least be happy to see him. But before Minato could touch his student, a Kakashi's fist slammed into the side of Minato's face. Minato was sent flying with the punch's strength and crashed back into the gate. Don't touch me, you bastard. Minato sat up as his family rushed over. Blood ran out of the corner of his mouth as Kakashi glared down at him. Kushina looked at Kakashi, ready to rip him apart. Why, Kakashi? Kakashi narrowed his eye at them. You left that poor boy to die knowing we couldn't always be there. So you all know, the village had decided you all will not be allowed to rejoin the village as full citizens. For the rest, you'll have to see the Hokage for punishment for what only he and the Fire Lord know the full list of charges. They all stood there stunned as Kakashi jumped off to start his mission. The Namikaze family kids weren't sure what was happening but knew something was wrong. Dread filled them as Minato got to his feet, and they walked into the village to the hateful glares and yells for them to leave and not come back. They were not willing to face the 3rd Hokage right now and had the new prophecy in their minds. The words echoed in Minato's head was like an evil voice that never left him alone. The hero to be has fallen, now a villain of unmatched power will rise. If he lives the world of shinobi will end, Should he die, then human world will burn by his heirs. The blood on your hands is something you won't lose, all you can choose is whose. Hell. 3rd POV Year 1 Gosha Family Dining Room. Naruto now 10 swings 6 of his 9 tails around with Octavia, trying to grab them all. She had 3 in her arms, and Stolas laughed as he ate a mouse. His wife Stella, a normally angry woman, was calm and smiling as he was the heir to a dukeship. This was the kind of friend she wanted her daughter to have, and who knew, maybe she could get them together later. Her daughter could be the first Goisha Duchess in the family's history. She was happy to see her husband had finally lived up to expectations for once. But she felt her anger from humans growing after Naruto had told her and Stola what his life was like. They may have been demons, but even they wouldn't have treated kids like that. Ah! Stolas and Stella both jumped from the yell. They looked over and saw Octavia pulling on 3 of Naruto's tails. Let me have the other tails, they're so soft. Octavia, let his tails go right now. Stella got up, reached over the table, and grabbed Octavia's arms. Octavia, you can't just pull on someone's tails. Octavia pitched a fit but did as her mother told her. Naruto grabbed the tails Octavia had yanked on. But when he saw her sad face, he frowned, not liking seeing a girl that had been nice to him sad. Naruto moved his tails and wrapped them around her shoulders. Octavia blushed and smiled before she grabbed onto his tails. Naruto smiled, glad to see her smiling. Hell. 3rd POV Year 1 A 10-year-old Naruto was asleep with his hair and tails splayed over the bed. Laying down beside her head on his arm and holding one of his tails was Octavia. Much to her father's annoyance, she would sneak into Naruto's room at night. Naruto was a heavy sleeper, so he only noticed her once he woke up. Groaning, Naruto opened his new red fox eyes and looked at the weight on his arm. He smiled as he saw Octavia asleep on his arm and holding one of his tails. Naruto looked down and saw she'd grabbed one of his shirts again and laughed a little before she slipped out of her hold. Octavia groaned a little before Naruto used a tail to pull the cover up to keep the warmth from leaving her too soon. He then pulled a pillow down, and Octavia sighed as she grabbed onto the pillow. Naruto laughed again before fixing his shirt and sleep pants. Best to go and see the servants to find out what's for breakfast. Naruto walked over to his door and opened to see Stolas about to knock on the door. Putting a finger to his lips, Stolas nodded before he stepped out of the way and let Naruto step out of his room. Naruto closed the door softly before he looked up at Stolas. She's in my shirt this time. I guess we know where the 4 shirts walked off to. Stolas sighed as the two started to walk down the hall. Naruto slipped his hands into his pockets, and Stolas tightened his rope knot. So, how are your eyes adjusting? Having unlocked your demon power may be a little stressful at first. So are you alright, my boy? Naruto nodded as he yawned. Yeah, it really was a pain right after. But, as long as I put only a little energy into them, it's not much trouble. But I wish Octavia would stop sneaking into my bed. I mean, it's nice to know someone wants to be close to me, but damn, I hate waking up to numb arms. Stolas laughed as they walked into the kitchen. The imp servants quickly walked over a set of plate of hellhog bacon with toast and scrambled eggs with orange juice. In front of Stolas, they set down the same meal with a newspaper and a side of oatmeal. Naruto sighed as he picked up his fork and started to eat the eggs. Once he finished, he looked at the door as Stella walked in to fix her bathrobes after taking a cup of coffee from an imp. Naruto couldn't help but notice her large double E-cup breast. She sat beside Stolas and took a sip as they set a plate with oatmeal, toast on the side, and cooked hellhog ham. Stella looked at Naruto as he ate the last piece of bacon. Is Octavia still asleep in your bed? Naruto gave her a simple nod as he drank his orange juice. Stella laughed, something that Stolas was still getting used to again. Since Naruto had come into their home, life had become so much better for everyone in the home or working for them home. Over the last year, life around the house was getting much easier, and even the servants were happier. Naruto's mere presence seemed to calm everyone. Stella herself was even easier on her daughter and her husband, much to their joy. Naruto laughed as Octavia walked into the kitchen wearing his shirt and pulling up a pair of black shorts. Naruto blushed, then he saw a pair of purple panties. Stola cleared his throat. Naruto jumped before quickly finishing his plate as Octavia sat down. Naruto tried to get away, but Octavia grabbed his shirt as he tried to get away. She jerked him back down, and Stella laughed as she looked at the two. "Oh, future son-in-law." Naruto paled as Stolas glared at him. Stella laughed before she spoke again. "Okay, I had my fun. You two remember we're having guests over for a dinner party tonight. Octavia, I expect you to be in that dress we picked out last week, and Naruto, please put on the suit we had made for you. I know you hate having the belt near your tails, but please, it's just one night, and fix your hair." Naruto nodded, but Octavia sighed as she wrapped her arm around Naruto's arm and leaned into Naruto's shoulder as she chewed on the bacon. Naruto looked out the window and couldn't help but wonder how his Gigi was doing. "Naruto, my boy." Naruto looked over at Stolas as he set his paper down. Stolas interlocked his fingers as he looked down at Naruto. "Stella and I will be speaking with the rest of the Gosha. We expect you to act as proper young heirs to two great houses. Naruto, you are a new heir of what was considered an extinct house. Many eyes will be on you now that the word of you is making rounds. Keep your guard up. Some will be looking to try and get you into their house influence." Naruto nodded and noticed Octavia loosened her grip. Taking advantage, Naruto got away from her and bolted out of the kitchen. Octavia cursed as she watched her friend rush off. Later that night, Naruto growled as he adjusted his suit jacket and dark red dress vest. Naruto closed his jacket and sighed as he let his tails hang low. Naruto sighed as he looked at himself in the mirror. Naruto saw himself in a fine black suit and dress shoes, a dark red vest, and a white undershirt under the jacket. Naruto looked up and saw his brushed back hair tied to his back with a red ribbon Octavia had picked out for him. It gave him a small ponytail that was touching his jacket collar. "Naruto, or you're finished." Naruto looked at the door and called out. "Yeah, I just finished, Octavia." Octavia opened the door and walked in. Naruto blushed as he looked at Octavia as she smiled at him. She was in a fawn floor-length purple dress. Her shoulders and arms were covered in something that looked like fishnet stockings. Her hair feathers were pulled back, and she had a crown on. Octavia laughed into the hand as she looked at Naruto. "I guess you like the dress." Naruto nodded before he cleared his throat and walked over to her, his shoes making a soft click on the hardwood floor. He stood in front of Octavia, a bent arm out. "Your servant." Octavia laughed but took his arm all the same. They walked back out of his and down the hall. They could hear the chatter as they got close to the ballroom. Once they walked in, the noise in the room stopped once they walked in. The nobles around him looked at him like a piece of fresh-cut meat. As they walked to Stolas's side, Octavia held tight to Naruto's arm. As Stolas started to thank everyone for coming, a group of the older women of the family talked in the back. "So that's the Wrath Duke to be. Damn, of course, Stella's already made some moves. You know we would do the same. Can't you feel the aura coming off that kid? He's already as strong as someone 7 or 8 years older than him." The oldest woman, a much older owl, spoke up as Octavia dragged Naruto to the snack table. "He already has all 9 tails." All the women looked at her as she spoke. "Is that important?" She nodded before she spoke up. "Yes, I looked into the old history of hell, and I believe he's a kitsune demon. An incredible breed of demon with only a few in our history. But, for him to have 9 like the last duke means his power will increase rapidly as he grows older." "How strong was the last duke?" She narrowed her eyes as Naruto steadied Octavia with one of his tails. They danced around one another on the dance floor. "He was able to wound the king of hell even if he lost the fight." That stunned the chattering birds and the surrounding noble. None of them had known that kid could grow to be that strong. They all looked at Naruto as he and Octavia laughed and danced around. But many of the nobles froze as they saw 2 of the older heirs of a branch Gosha family. "Move, brats." They kicked Octavia's legs, but Naruto kept Octavia on her feet as he glared at the older heirs. They were both male white cockatoos, each in a blue and black suit. They smirked down at Naruto, and he growled before. To their shock, power erupted from Naruto, setting everyone on edge. His whisker and eye marker turned red, and his canines grew out into fangs. The tails not holding Octavia up ignited and burned a bright blue. His blonde hair turned blood red with his glowing red eyes. "You dare to touch Octavia!" Naruto slammed 2 flaming tails into their face and sent them flying. One slammed into the wall across the ballroom stuck in the wall, and the other slammed into the room's roof. He fell back down onto the floor. Both of them were out cold and bleeding, but everyone in the room was frozen to their spot on the floor. Naruto sighed and relaxed after a minute. The power in the air faded, and his tails, marks, and hair all returned to normal. But he still glared at the two as a female white cockatoo rushed over as another large white cockatoo male in a blue suit rushed over to the one on the floor. That was so cool, Naruto. Octavia jumped into Naruto's side and laughed as she rubbed her cheek into Naruto's. Naruto blushed and laughed as he rubbed the back of his head. Stella smiled as she looked at the two of them. Oh, these two will help me take over the main branch sooner than planned. Stolas looked at the boy, shocked that he just stuck the two sons of his eldest brother and completely knocked them out. Oh, this is going to be a long party, and it was. Other heirs and heiress had tried to mess with Octavia. Still, Naruto was never far away, or Octavia just had to say his name, and he scared them off. But, this also made many of the nobles with daughters plan to try and steal him away from Stolas and Stella. At the night's end, Naruto and Okativa ran off as a few of the younger heiresses tried to separate Naruto from Octavia. After the party, Naruto sent Octavia off with her mother while he stayed to talk with Stolas. Stolas grabbed Naruto's shoulder and made him look him in the eye. "Young man, do you know what you've done?" Stolas didn't yell, but his firm tone made it clear he was upset. Naruto sighed as he looked away. "Naruto, I'm not mad that you defended our owlet. In fact, I'm grateful for your actions. But do not resort to violence like that again. You've put yourself in the sights of some very dangerous demons, my boy." Naruto nodded, and Stolas waved his hand, a sign Naruto knew meant he was free. Naruto rushed out of the ballroom, pulled the damn jacket off, and opened the red vest. Year 2 Hell 3rd Pav Naruto, now 11, sighed as he sat on the roof, looking at the morning clouds. Not too long after, Naruto thrashed two of the heirs after they tried to make Octavia fall. Stella got off on the fact her future son-in-law had made it clear who had the strongest house in the family. Stella had sent Octavia off for a week to visit a few cousins she wanted her to connect with to ensure they had a better power block. She was so grateful for Naruto's wrath that night. Now she was sitting with the wives of her strongest supporters in the garden, ensuring her alliances. Naruto had given her a leg up she was looking for and was going to use it well. This fucking heavy book. Naruto moved close to the edge once he heard a voice. He saw an imp with a large set of horns on the master room's balcony. He tried to stand, and Naruto saw he'd fallen into Stella's meeting. Not wanting to hear the yelling, Naruto grabbed the imp and book with his tails as he started to fall. Naruto set the imp down on the roof, and the imp looked at him. "I don't want to hear Stella yelling or see you ripped limb from limb. Go to the other side of the house, nobody is over there today. And before you ask, what Stolas does and losses has nothing to do with me." The imp smiled as he looked at Naruto. "Working for me, thanks, kid. If you ever need someone killed, look me up. Name's Blitz." The O is silent. Naruto hummed, then nodded as he stood up. Naruto knew he couldn't get down alone but noticed something about this imp. The air around him felt different. "Come on, let me get you down and get lost before anyone knows what is going on." Blitz smiled as they walked over to the other side of the house, and Naruto used two of his tails to set Blitz down on the ground. As Naruto pulled the tails back, Blitz gave him one more wave before she slipped through the large shrubs. I got the feeling I'll be seeing him again." Naruto sighed before deciding he wanted out of this damn estate for a day. He was bored and wanted a taste of freedom again. Naruto walked back across the roof and looked down at Stella as she laughed with her friends. His shadow was cast over the table, and they all looked up at him. The other wives were shocked as Naruto looked down at them with glowing red eyes. Stella smiled as she looked up at him and rested her chin on her hands, happy to see the king of the board. "How can I help you, future son-in-law?" Naruto narrowed his eyes as he looked at Stella, and she blinked, surprised at the look. "Naruto." Naruto smiled before jumping and landing on the ground before them all. Naruto fixed his burnt orange vest and rolled up the sleeves as he locked eyes with Stella. Stella wasn't used to this Naruto. The Naruto she knew was relaxed and calm, but this version gave off more of a presence than normal, and she'd be lying if she said she didn't like this Naruto more. "I'm leaving the estate for a little while. I've been locked in this place for more than 2 years. Then there are the times I'm left alone for days when you send Octavia off to other branches. I'm off to pick out some weapons and do some shopping. I don't want to dirty my hands or tails when I have to start killing fools." Stella looked at him, shocked, but then she smiled wider as she looked at him. "Well, You do have a point. You've done everything we've asked and much more, so I guess some rewards are due. I'll have a driver get the car. Stella then looked back at her friends. You heard the Duke to be girls, he's going to go get some weapons. Stella stood up and then walked into the house. Naruto looked at the others, and they all nervously laughed as they looked at him. Naruto's look put them on edge. He laughed a second later, then bowed to them before he turned around. 30 minutes later, Naruto watched the building and demon as they rode down the road. Naruto sighed as they came to a stop at a red light. Naruto looked at the demons walking around. Stella watched Naruto closely. She tried to keep Naruto close to those who'd be his equal or, much to her annoyance, a level under him like her family. She liked the boy, she really did, but she wanted him to stay around them. The car started to move again, and Stella, wanting to know what he was thinking, spoke up. So, what kind of weapons are you looking for? Naruto looked at her and nodded as he spoke. I was thinking of a sword and maybe 2 handguns to get some range when I need it. Best to know how to fight at range and up close. Stella nodded, seeing the logic of Naruto's plan. Soon they pulled up to the best weapons store in the Pride Ring. They parked, and Stella told the driver to get some food as they were shopping and would call him before checking out. He thanked her as she and Naruto walked into the store. They were greeted with bows and a few "Your Highnesses." Naruto waved and thanked them. Stella smiled as they walked up to the wall of handguns. Naruto looked over the guns, and 2 caught his eyes. They looked like a set of twin 4.5 Colt revolvers. They looked like they were made from black metal of some kind and had glowing white engravings. In the center of the revolvers, the grip looked like it had a gem with 6 wings and a halo. Naruto grabbed the 2 guns and spun them on his trigger fingers. He grabbed the handles and smiled as he looked at them. I guess we have the guns now for the sword. Naruto nodded as a sales imp gave him an adjustable gun belt with 2 holsters and had a strap on the right front in front of the holster. Naruto holstered the guns, and Stella told the imp to have a crate of ammo ready at the register when they were ready for checkout. They then walked across the store and soon got to the blade section. Stella started looking for a weapon for Octavia since she needed to learn self-defense too. Naruto smiled when he saw a katana with a black blade and red spine. The sheath underneath it with a white sheath and a line of blood-red pentagram going down to the bottom. Naruto used 2 of his tails and grabbed the sword and sheath. Naruto sheathed the sword and put the sword on his belt. The Eastern sword, that's an odd choice. Naruto looked at Stella as she walked back over with a short sword. Naruto nodded as he turned and was about to walk away, but Stella grabbed his shoulder. He looked back, and she held out a hellphone. I got one for Octavia, one too. You 2 are about old enough. We should let you 2 have some independence. Naruto smiled and took the phone and slipped it into his pocket. Well, I guess we should get going. Stella nodded as they walked to the checkout. Hell, 3rd year Naruto, now 12, groaned as his eyes opened and looked up at his roof. At the bottom of his vision was a head of a black feather resting on his chest, and he could feel fingers on his left shoulder with a leg wrapped around his right leg. Naruto sighed, knowing he wasn't going anywhere with her holding him. Looking over at his dresser were his phone and weapons. Octavia groaned as she moved around a little, and her head moved up his chest. Naruto gave out a small laugh, then wrapped his right arm around her shoulder and held her closer. Naruto closed his eyes, wanting to get some more sleep if he was stuck. Naruto lay there for about another 20 minutes before a few hard knocks came on his door. Naruto opened his eyes and looked at the door as Octavia groaned and held onto Naruto tighter and pushed her head into Naruto's chest. A few harder knocks came from the door before Stella's voice came through the door. Stolas, leave them be. The teachers have been hammering them with work and Naruto trained late into the night. Octavia groaned as she opened her eyes. Damn it, what time is it? Naruto laughed more as he sat up. Octavia held on and groaned as she let go of Naruto. They got out of bed, and Naruto stretched his arms and back. Naruto looked back over and blushed as Octavia leaned over, showing off her bright red panties. She was digging through the dresser drawer she'd taken over. He also couldn't help but notice that her hips, ass, and breasts were starting to grow out. Naruto pulls out a pair of tight black shorts. Naruto saw they fit her like a glove and showed off her ass nicely. Like her mother, Octavia had a very nice hourglass figure and would have a great ass and breasts. Octavia looked back at Naruto and noticed him looking at her ass. She smiled and shook her ass a little. See something you like? Naruto's face turned red, and he looked away. Octavia laughed, walked over, kissed Naruto's cheek, and ran a hand over his chest as she walked away. "I'll be waiting in the kitchen." Naruto watched her walk over to the door and opened the door, then looked back at him one more time before she left. "Don't forget we're going to the Harvest Moon thing with my dad." Naruto nodded as she walked out of the room. Naruto gulped as he patted down his shirt and retied the knot of sleeping pants, making it come more off his tails. Naruto quickly grabbed his phone and followed her out. He rushed down the hall and slowed as he approached the kitchen and heard Stolas talking. "Octava, how many times must I tell you to stop snacking into that boy's room? What's the big deal? Naruto's never touched me in any perverse ways, Dad. The most that has happened was an accidental touch, but those are meaningless. He's asleep, or it's when we're training with our swords or when he's teaching me to shoot. And I can deal with it as I know what kind of young man he is. But you two are starting to develop some, and I don't want you sleeping in his bed anymore. I've seen how you look at him, Octavia. I don't want to have you and him to be teen parents." Deciding to end this, Naruto yawned as he walked through the door, acting like he hadn't heard them. He walked over, stretching his tails out, before he sat down next to Stella as she sipped her coffee. An imp put a plate of food and a cup of juice in front of him. Naruto nodded to the imp as he took a step back. "Thanks." "You're welcome, young sir." Naruto started to eat as Stella spoke up. "So, Naruto, can we count on you to keep our Octavia safe?" Naruto laughed and nodded as he ate his toast. Octavia smiled as she walked away from her father and sat beside Naruto. Stolas sighed as he walked over and sat in his seat and then looked at Naruto. "Naruto, before we go, you and I will be going out to get you some things for the Wrath Ring. It will be the ring you'll be watching over once you've grown and married. Also, bring your weapons, the place we are going is safe, but best to get used to always having them on you." Naruto nodded as he finished his breakfast. Octavia let him go, and Stolas followed him out to the hall. As soon as they got away, Naruto spoke before Stolas could. "We have to go see that imp to get the book, right?" Naruto smirked when he saw the shocked look on Stolas's face. "I've kept your secret and helped him get away last year when he almost crashed one of Stella's tea parties. I let it go that day because Octavia would have had to suffer if you'll start fighting again, so I've held my tongue." Stolas's eyes widened as he looked down at Naruto. He had no idea Naruto had thought of the family like that. "I've looked into the Wrath Ring, knowing I'd have to take care of it one day." Naruto smirked as he walked into his room. Half an hour later, Naruto's eye twitched as he watched Blitz and Stolas talking about business investment. "Blitzo, I'm hungry," Naruto hummed as he looked at the door before it kicked in. Naruto saw a gray and white hellhound. She wore black leg stockings, blue shorts, and a black shirt with red fangs on her budding chest and ass. But what caught Naruto's attention the most was her eyes. They were red with white iris that had slits. She locked eyes with Naruto and felt her heart race as she looked at him. "Luna, I'm busy at the moment." Luna ignored Blitz as she looked at Naruto. Luna's instances screamed at her to get this alpha to be. Luna slowly walked over to Naruto and ignored Blitz's as Naruto held eye contact with her. Her tail wagged, and Blitz looked on in horror. "No." Blitz grabbed Luna and pulled her away from Naruto. Naruto laughed, then threw a tail out and smacked Blitz's face. Luna kicked him in the nuts and smiled as she looked at Naruto. "Thanks. Want to hang out with me?" Luna asked, a blush on her face. "Sure, we still have a few hours until we head off to the Harvest Moon thing. Is that dinner down the street any good?" Luna nodded as Naruto stood up and they left the office. Naruto was happy about the new friend. They soon exited the building, and Luna grabbed Naruto's hand and started pulling him down the street. Naruto, without thinking about it, followed her. Naruto smiled as he was pulled into the dinner. They spent the better part of an hour talking and eating. By the end, Luna was sure she had found the alpha she wanted, like she used to hear the older hounds talk about. Naruto was so kind to her and listened when she talked. When they returned to the office, Luna held onto Naruto's arm and rested her head on his shoulder. She's also wrapped her tail around two of Naruto's foxtails. Naruto laughed as he rubbed the back of his head as Stolas and Blitz looked at them. Stolas had a worried look on his face, and Blitz looked ready to murder him. Naruto smiled as he looked at the imp. "Hey Luna, you got a phone." Luna smiled and nodded as she pulled out another hell phone. Naruto told her his number and she texted him so he had her number. Naruto thanked her and he and Stolas left, much to Luna's sadness. Soon they were home, and Octavia dragged Naruto off as soon as she saw him. She wanted to show Naruto the dress she was going to wear. She had him sit in her room as she walked into her bathroom. After a few minutes, Octavia walked out in a burnt orange ankle-length dress with head feathers pulled up into a bun with a few hanging over her face. On her neck was a dark blue lace tied around her neck. One Naruto blinked as he looked at her. "Are you trying to match my favorite vest?" Octavia blushed as she looked away from Naruto. "Maybe I just wanted to wear something you'd like." Naruto blushed and laughed as he stood up. "Well, I need to go and get dressed, so I'll meet you in the car." Octavia nodded and walked back into her bathroom. She was going to put on a little makeup to make her eyes stand out a little more. 2 hours later, Naruto was practicing his draw as the imps got ready for the pain games to start. At his side of the bar stood Octavia, happy talking with an older female imp named Millie. Naruto spun his guns one last time before slamming them back into the holsters. The announcer called out the start of the games, and Millie gave a quick goodbye before she rushed off. Naruto laughed and rested his forearm on his sword. "So what do you think of the Wrath Ring?" Naruto shrugged as Octavia grabbed onto his free arm, as they started to walk to the stage to sit with Stolas. Stolas had a couch brought out, and they all sat in the shade. Naruto sighed, annoyed that all he could do was watch. Little did Naruto know this year brought him the two loves of his life. Hell Year 4, Luna down. Naruto shot an imp, and Octavia pressed her back to Naruto's as she fired her rifle. "On you left." Listening to Luna, Naruto turned and shot another imp. Luna rushed over, and they started to run through the street. "You just to open you mouth, Octavia." Naruto shot 2 more imps and a hellhound. "Well, I'm sorry. They shouldn't have told us that they'd made a coat out of your tails." Luna cut in as she killed a larger imp with one of her twin katanas Naruto bought her as a birthday gift. "Yeah. We're the only ones who get to do anything with those tails." Naruto growled as they rushed into the building with the I.M.P. office, luckily losing the last of the gang after them. They sighed as they got into the elevator. Damn it. Naruto was running low on ammo. He reloaded what he had as Octavia pulled another ammo magazine from her ammo belt. She loaded a fresh magazine, and Luna cleaned her blades as the door dinged. They sighed together as they walked out of the elevator. Naruto walked up to the door as Luna started to talk to her rival as she sheathed her swords. "Hey, Octavia, why did your family have us start doing these small contracts? I know I shouldn't complain about the easy pay, but why?" "Well, for one, he wanted me and Naruto to get used to fighting. Since we're both from noble families, we must serve at least 4 times in the yearly Extermination Day battle. And 2, unlike most demons like you, who get to hide from the fighting. If our house kills some real angels, then our houses keep the weapons and are paid for the rank of the angels we kill." Octavia huffed as they walked into the office to see Naruto and Blitz talking. "Okay, so you guys killed the leader. Stole was paying $3 grand for this one, and after I take the company's share you'll each come out of this 750 each. I'll have the cash ready before you kids run off to lunch." Blitz stood up from the front desk and walked into his office. Naruto sighed as he rubbed the back of his head and looked back at the girls. Octavia and Luna were glaring at one another out of the corner of their eyes, and Naruto could swear he saw sparks. Coughed, getting their attention. They looked at him, and he smiled as he pulled out his phone. "Who wants pizza?" They smiled as they nodded, and Naruto made a quick call. Once the food was ordered, Naruto unlocked his gun belt, hung it up, and sat on the office couch. They quickly sat down on each of his sides. Octavia grabbed onto his right arm and rested her head on his shoulder. Luna wrapped her tail around 2 of Naruto's and interlocked her fingers. Octavia saw this and glared at their hands. Octavia did the same but held tight to Naruto's hand. "It's not like I hate the attention, but I wish they'd give me some damn room to breathe." Naruto's eye twitched as he waited for the pizza to get here so he could get free. Year 5 Naruto, now 14, jumped back, dodging an artificial angel spear. He used his sword to cut off the head of the artificial. Naruto jumped up, pulled out his gun, and shot one in the face. Naruto huffed as he looked around, seeing that he'd killed more than a dozen artificial angels, 2 normal angels, and 1 high angel of the First Order. He'd been abandoned by the other heirs of the other branch families of the Gosha. He knew Octavia would be safe with the rest of the long-range combat units. Stolas's house had become the most important and a front-runner, so Octava would be well guarded as they fought. Ah! Naruto turned and fired at another high angel. Naruto hit the woman's wing, and she slammed face first into a wall. Naruto put another round in the back of her head, killing the angel. Naruto noticed this one seemed different from the other high angel. Unlike most other angels, she had bright red hair. On the ground beside the angel, she dropped a holy katana with a pure white blade with a golden and white handle. On her side was a sheath, and Naruto smiled when he heard the alarm. Fucking finally! Naruto yelled as he fell back into a wall as the angels started falling back. He had a cut from a spear on his leg. It was a long cut going down his thigh. Sighing, Naruto forced himself up. He knew those fuckers would return to take the spoils he'd fought for. Naruto holstered his gun, sheathed his sword as he walked over, and used 5 tails to take the holy katana and the sheath. Naruto slipped the sword under his belt, then walked over to the other high angel and used 2 tails to pick up the holy double-bladed battle axe. The handle was pure white with a gold-wrapped center and lower grip. The blade body was white with golden edges. With a smirk, Naruto rested the battle axe on his shoulder. The normal angel was using the same spears as the artificials. Naruto! Naruto! Naruto turned as Octavia ran around a corner and laughed a little as he looked at the purple uniform Stella forced her to use. Her top feathers have been tied back with 3 feathers hanging over her face. Naruto hissed as his leg finally healed from the damn holy weapon. Octavia ran up to Naruto after seeing him. She hugged him, and Naruto laughed before Octavia pulled back and looked around. "Were the Gosha heirs Dad put under your command?" Naruto huffed as he looked at her. "The second that saw the first high angel, they abandoned me to deal with it in the artificials. It was close right after they ran." Naruto touched his leg, and Octavia looked down at the slowly vanishing scar. If that artificial was just a little faster, it could have taken it. Octavia fumed as she looked at the wound. Octavia knew the news would have covered the battle, so she'd get the faces of the fuckers. Naruto huffed before he looked down at the angel, knowing what he had to do to get his money. "I hate this part." Naruto lifted the battle axe, and Octavia looked away. With one quick swing, Naruto took the head off the angel, grabbed his hair, and then walked back over to the woman. Naruto used a tail to turn her over and looked at her face. She had a round face with a small scar down her left cheek. "Forgive me." Naruto cut off her head and grabbed her hair. Naruto turned his head and saw Octavia had gathered the spears up, and he smiled. He walked over and hugged her, and without hesitation, she wrapped her arms around him. "Thanks, Octavia." Octavia blushed and rubbed her face into his neck. Naruto was taller than her now, and Octavia had grown a little taller and had started growing into her curves. Naruto smiled as he ran a hand down her back. With a sigh, Naruto spoke up. "Just 2 more and we'll be done with this nightmare, Octavia. Who knows what the future holds for us once this is all done." Octavia smiled as an image of a wedding and eggs flashed in her mind. But then, an image of Loon taking Naruto flashed in her mind. Octavia held Naruto a little tighter, not willing to let him go. Octavia knew she loved Naruto but didn't know if he loved her the same way. "He's alive." Naruto growled as he held Octavia to his chest, knowing she wanted to attack the heirs as they returned. Naruto glared at the 6 birds. "I'll deal with you 6 later. I have a meeting to get to and money to collect." The heirs looked pissed, and Naruto saw all they had were a few spears each. Naruto knew he'd called it right that they'd come to collect the reward for his hard work. Octavia turned in Naruto's hold as she tried to pull her rifle off her back. "Relax, Octavia, I'll deal with them later. We all have to go to the palace to collect it later tonight, so I'll have my payback there. Now come on, Luna is waiting for us, then we'll go to the meeting tonight." Octavia's right eye twitched, not happy with that news but knew she couldn't just tell him no. Octavia knew Naruto cared for Luna a lot, but she hoped it wasn't as much as he cared for her. Naruto grabbed the heads and spears with his tails. Naruto wouldn't leave these fools with anything of value. While holding onto Octavia's side, Naruto started to walk away. Octavia let it go, knowing that when word got out that they ran from battle, a lot of damage would be done to their houses. The heirs would lose a lot of face in the wider view. 20 minutes later, Naruto smiled as he watched Luna and Octavia scream at Blitz after taking a shot at Naruto. With a laugh, Naruto got onto his feet and walked over to the door to the meeting room. Naruto closed the door and pulled out his phone. Naruto opened his contacts, hit Stella's name, and then put the phone to his ear. It rang a few times before she picked up. Naruto? This is unusual. You hardly ever call me. Naruto could hear some water and guessed she was in the bath. The lower house assholes Stolas set me up with ditched me while I was fighting a high angel, then came back to steal my spoils. But let me get to the point. I will call them out when we go to get our rewards. Half of them are some of the ones trying to take control. I'm going to skin those fucker thinking they could do such things. I will stomp these little shits back into the dirt like the insects they are. Stella made a strange cooing sound, and Naruto heard some splashing around. Little did Naruto know what his words and powerful tone were doing to her. Stella loved the power his words gave off, and she ran her hand up her stomach and between her breast before biting down on 2 of her fingers. After a second, she spoke with a spark she hadn't felt in years and started returning to her body. Stella moved her hand back down her body and pinched her left nipple before moving lower. Naruto, I'll deal with the parents. Kill those little fuckers and turn them in new rubs for the house. Naruto laughed and smiled as he made a plan. Before he hung up, he swore he heard a moan before the call ended. Ignoring what she may have been doing, Naruto put his phone away. Naruto sighed as he walked back into the office and saw Luna and Octavia holding each other's collars. Naruto laughed, knowing his life would always be crazy. Naruto broke them up, and they glared at one another. Soon the pizza arrived, and they all started to eat. Hours later, Naruto stood beside Octavia and smiled as he watched Lucifer as he was about to give his little speech. Octavia leaned into Naruto, and he laughed as he wrapped his arm around her side. Lucifer walked up to the balcony that overlooked the hall. On his right side was his wife Lilith, and damn, she was beautiful. She was tall and had long golden hair. Her horn was larger and had curved back horns. Naruto saw she had a body that could put anyone to shame. From what Naruto could tell, her breasts were Triple H cups, and her hips pushed the dress to its limits. On Lucifer's other side was their daughter. Charlie Morningstar and Naruto blushed when she looked down, and they looked at each other. Charlie blushed, too, and Naruto started to really look at her. She was a little shorter than Naruto's current 5'9". She had a somewhat slender demoness. She was standing around 5 feet tall or over. She has long, blonde hair with lighter blonde and pink highlights, tied into a twice-banded low ponytail. Her blonde bangs flip to her left with a curl. Her lips are black, and she has rosy red cheeks. She wears gray eyeliners, her eyes are red, her sclera is light yellow, and she has thick black eyelashes, both top and bottom. She was in a dark red, almost crimson dress showing off the already growing curves. It was clear she would be a real beauty, like her mother. Naruto also noticed her giving him a once-over as well. Interesting woman. Charlie looked at Naruto and smiled at what she saw. Naruto had spiky blonde hair tied back into a ponytail with crimson highlights at the edges. His bangs were a brighter red with a mix of orange and sharp piercing red eyes. He had on a white long-sleeve dress shirt with a burnt orange vest and rolled his sleeves up. On his hands were combat gloves with burnt orange knuckle guards. Naruto had on his gun belt with his weapons all at the ready for a fight. He had on blue jeans with a pair of steel-toe boots. Charlie smiled, and her black lips slightly plumped lips you'd like your girlfriend to have. But some told Naruto this woman was dangerous but not like her parents. She had a slightly darker air behind her smile. Single quote. Naruto? Naruto blinked and then realized he was holding Octavia tight to his chest. Sorry, Octavia. Naruto realized that the speech was almost over, and the guards were taking the weapons and the heads Naruto had gotten. Now, each of your rewards will be given before the end of the party. Now, before I call the party to begin, I'd like to call attention to an heir to the first house to which I granted the title of Duke II. Naruto, please come forward. I have a special reward and offer for you as you were the only heir to collect not only one high angel's head but 2. Naruto let go of Octavia, but she grabbed at his hand but missed as Naruto walked forward and looked up at them. Naruto saw the smile on Charlie's face, and something didn't feel right with that smile. Good to see you again, young Kitsune. My look at what you've grown into, my boy. You are only a year younger than my daughter and already killing first-order angels. And those eyes are your Kurama's heir for sure. Those red eyes and that aura just scream power and death. Naruto thumbed his revolver, and Lucifer smiled as he looked at the hand. Oh, you'll make a fine candidate. Naruto looked at him before Lucifer gave out a low dark laugh. I'm looking into candidates to become my daughter's future husband. That's your first reward being the first candidate. The second is an offer to pick a weapon from my personal collection of angel weapons. Naruto stepped forward and laughed as he looked at Lucifer and spoke. While I'm grateful for two such great rewards, I'm afraid I must decline. Lucifer raised an eyebrow, and Charlie narrowed her eyes, thinking he didn't think she was worth his time, and gasps rang out around him. Lucifer hummed as he looked down at Naruto. Why is that? There was no anger in Lucifer's voice but curiousness in the boy's reasoning. Naruto smiled as he held his arms behind his back, his 9 tails swaying behind him. As you said, I'm a kitsune. A demon who loves to trick people and demons and steal what we see as vulnerable treasures. There is no fun for me if it's just handed to me, my king. Oh, and there is also a matter I'd like to bring up with you. Lucifer hummed and then nodded as he looked down at Naruto. Charlie also relaxed, realizing he wasn't thinking anything like she thought he was. I see your point. Kurama was the same way when it came to some he saw value in. He even took a chance at stealing my throne. In doing so, he was the only one to wound me in such a fight. Very well, but I will not remove you as a candidate. You're very valuable, and besides you, I can only think of 3 others that I see as worthy of my daughter. My throne requires a lot of power to hold onto it. But that aside, what would you like then? I did offer you one-of-a-kind weapon from my collection, but you've turned that down. But, all that aside, what does this matter? Naruto hummed, then pulled his arms back from around his back and crossed them over his chest. His tails swayed faster, which they did when he was deep in thought. Naruto smiled as he spoke up. First, I'd like a house of my own. Living with the Gosha family is nice, but in a year or 2 I'd like my own space. I've been making money for the last year, and I've got a lot saved to prepare for this. Second, I'd like to make it known that aside from Octavia, the other Gosha family heirs behind us fled from battle, leaving me to deal with the angels. I can't help but find this shameful and find them unworthy of their station. Naruto could feel the anger behind him and knew he'd have to deal with it once they were free from view. Lucifer hummed and nodded before he spoke up. I see. Well, I'm sure you know you're free to handle them then. Now as for the house. I've had Kurama's mansion maintained, and it's deep in the Crimson Forest just inside the mountain range of the Pride Ring. When you turn 16, I'll have a group of workers come for you. Naruto bowed and stepped back. When he was within reach, Octavia grabbed his arm and dug her smaller claws into his arm. Naruto laughed as he felt the claws break his skin. Octavia glared up at the royal family, and Naruto saw Charlie smile as she looked at them with a glint in her eye. Naruto knew that look and knew this was far from over. Like it or not, he'd gotten her attention and knew she'd keep a close eye on him. 2 hours later, Naruto smiled as he stood over the bodies as they burned with holy white flames. Naruto flashed his large canines and other teeth that were becoming fang-like. 3 of these heirs were from far more prominent houses before Octavia's family line. Not with them gone, her house would become. Year 6 Naruto, Octavia, and Luna were all 15, eating in the Gosha family forest. Stella had given in rather quickly once Naruto talked to her about letting Luna train with them. Stolas and Octavia found it weird that she easily gave in to Naruto's wants. Still, both choked it up to Naruto's presence, and actions made their house much more prominent among the remaining 40 houses. Hey, Naruto. Naruto looked up from his sandwich. Luna set her sandwich down before she spoke up. I was hoping I could get you to help me and my dad with something. Naruto hummed, and Octavia looked at Luna as she spoke. What's up? Octavia glared at Luna with a smile as she spoke. We've got a lot of money saved up and we're going to get more weapons as well as hire some employees. Biltz and I were thinking of having some extra muscle in case someone gets stupid. I know you can bust some heads when you have to. Naruto nodded before he spoke. I don't mind helping back if I had to bust a few skulls. I want pizza. Luna laughed and nodded as she started eating again. Naruto laughed, quickly finished his sandwich, and stood up. He sighed, not used to not having his weapon belt on. Are we done with the training for today? Naruto looked back at Luna, and she blushed when she locked eyes with Naruto. She never could look away once Naruto locked eyes with her. Her tail started to wag as she looked at Naruto. Sure, all we've been doing is conditioning. Let go and get my weapons, and we'll go. Octavia sighed and spoke up when she stood up. If that's the case, Do I need to call for the car when we return? Naruto nodded as he helped Luna to her paws. Then he pulled her into his chest. Luna blushed, and he saw Octavia's eyes glowing red as she looked at this. Naruto knew he wanted both of these girls and could have them both. The laws of hell allowed him to have both as he needed to ensure he had heirs as he was the only survivor of his house. But he wanted to see how they would react to him becoming a little more interested in being the one who was being active instead of letting them have control. He didn't give a damn about that fucking candidate's stats. I did just get that new motorcycle. I hope she doesn't mind holding onto me as we ride, or she could sit in front and lean back into my chest if she rather. Not caring about Octavia's glare, Luna rubbed her head into his chest. Her triple C cup breast pressed into Naruto's chest before she pulled back as Naruto let go. When Naruto turned his back, Luna pulled her eyelid down and stuck her tongue out at Octavia as she glared hatefully at Luna. Luna turned and slammed her ass a few times before she rushed after Naruto, a big smile on her face. Octavia's fist clenched as she watched Naruto walk away with that hellhound bitch. You haven't won him yet, bitch. 20 minutes later, Naruto backed his new custom-wide rear-wheel Harley. Its body paint was a bright orange accent with a main black body. The bike had 4 exhaust pipes, 2 on each side. Naruto had a fox skull painted on the front right under the pulled-back handlebars. On the sides of the bike were his swords, and he kept his revolvers on his side. Naruto smiled as Luna hopped on in front of Naruto, to his surprise, not expecting her to really do it. Naruto also couldn't help but notice how her butt was so pressed hard into his crotch. He also noticed her ass seemed to have more size than those pants she showed. Luna leaned back into Naruto and smiled as he started the engine. But as he was about to pull off, Naruto felt 2 massive murderous auras. Looking back at the house, he saw Stella and Octavia looking at him from 2 windows. Octavia was in her room, and Stella was near the kitchen. Note to self: sleep in the woods tonight. Naruto drove off, and Luna's tail slapped against his chest from the wind. Once they were on the main road, Naruto raced down the road. Naruto's smile grew as they rode on the road. Naruto wondered how far Luna would let him go, so taking his chances, Naruto rested his chin on her shoulder. Luna jumped a little, but I saw a smile and white of her eye out of the corner of my eye as I drove. I wonder. Naruto smiled before he lifted his head back up, and with a dark smile, Naruto bit the side of her ear with my 2 front canines. A sharp moan came from Luna before Naruto stopped at a red light and dragged his fangs off her ear. Luna shivered from the attention, and Naruto thought he'd pushed enough for now. As he started to drive her, heard Luna muttering something. Fucking tease. Naruto smiled, then let go of the right bar, grabbed her stomach, and shoved her more into him. Luna squirmed as Naruto held her to his body, then spoke into her ear as he grabbed the handlebar again. I'm no tease. I just want to know what will get me stabbed or what will get those lips onto mine. Luna reached down and grabbed his thigh with her right hand. When they stopped at another red light, Luna turned and spoke, a blush on her face. All you had to do was ask if you really want something like that. Or you could just grab my ass and pin me against a wall, Alpha. Naruto blushed and decided that the first chance he got, this bitch would howl for him. Soon enough, they pulled up to the office, and both noticed that Blitz's van wasn't there, and Naruto smiled. Naruto grabbed her hips before they got off the bike. He let his fangs come from behind his lips and slightly bit down her neck. Luna moaned as her left leg kicked a little as she felt the jolts of pleasure from the shaped fangs. Luna grabbed him, and Naruto grabbed his swords with his tails before she jerked off the bike. Naruto knew he'd gotten himself into it and was happy about it this time. You're so lucky we have a nice couch. Naruto put his swords on his sides as she pulled him through the doors. Not wanting to wait, Naruto grabbed Luna's hips, slammed her against the wall, and had her paws off the floor. Luna looked at Naruto, shocked, but he moved in, eye glowing a dark crimson. You did say I could do this, so I am. Naruto used 4 of his tails to make a seat for Luna. Naruto ran his hands up Luna's sides and smiled as he cupped her face, looked at her red cheeks, and then looked into her white slit eyes. So, little hound, what was that you called me? An alpha? Luna blushed and looked away, too embarrassed to look Naruto in the eye. Naruto smiled, grabbed her side with one hand, and grabbed her cheek with his other hand. At this close, Naruto noticed she had human-like lips. Naruto smiled as he rubbed a thumb on her upper cheek. And Naruto? Naruto laughed before he leaned in, pressed his head to her, and made her look him in the eye. Naruto pressed his body more into her body. If I'm your alpha, then does that make you my pretty bitch? Luna was turning a bright red. Naruto laughed before he decided to go in for the kill. Naruto cupped her other cheek and moved in and kissed Luna. Luna froze for a second before she threw her legs around Naruto's waist and grabbed his cheeks, holding him in place. Luna opened her mouth, and Naruto quickly took advantage. Naruto deepened the kiss, and Luna moaned as she brushed her tongue against Naruto's fangs. Naruto lowered his hands, grabbed Luna's hips, and pulled her off his tails. Not wanting Naruto to move too much, Luna grabbed the back of his head, wrapped her arm around his neck, and grabbed onto the top of his vest. But, soon, they both needed air, so they had to break the kiss. Luna held tight to Naruto, her mouth open as she took a few deep breaths with her forehead pressed to Naruto's. Oh, my god. I can't believe you just dominated me like that and I liked it. Naruto smiled as he threw her up a little, then grabbed her ass cheeks. Luna smiled before she spoke with a smile. Let's get to the office. Naruto smiled and let Luna down, and she grabbed Naruto's hand and then pulled her along to the elevator. Luna pulled Naruto into another deep kiss while they were in the elevator. Naruto hummed, then shoved her into the wall of the elevator wall. Naruto held onto her waist as they made out. Luna broke the kiss and smiled up at Naruto. She grabbed one of Naruto's hands and ran it up her stomach but stopped under her breast. You're free to feel them all you want. Naruto smiled before he grabbed her breast, and Luna moaned, rubbing her thighs together when he lightly dug his claws into her skin. Naruto smiled as he moved his tails around and ran two up her legs. But the ding came from the door before Naruto could do what he planned. They quickly pulled away from each other as two more female hellhounds walked in. The two looked at them and blushed as Naruto and Luna walked out of two of Naruto's tails on her. One wrapped around her waist and one around her tail. Luna quickly walked them to the office and unlocked the door. They walked in, and Naruto heard the door lock. Naruto turned and smiled as Luna grabbed his vest. Naruto smiled before he grabbed her waist and then threw her down on the couch. Naruto laughed as he unbuttoned his vest and shirt and left them open. Luna saw some scars on his chest, with a few on his shoulder. If anything we do makes you feel uncomfortable, tell me and I'll stop. Luna nodded, happy to know he at least wanted her to be comfortable. I don't have any rubbers. Naruto smiled as four tails moved over to Luna. Oh, don't worry about that, Luna. Things you're thinking about are better kept in the home or bedroom. I just thought maybe I'd see what my pretty bitch likes. Naruto wrapped two tails around her arms and the other two around her waist. Naruto's smile widened, and he flashed his fangs as he pulled his right glove down. Naruto pulled her up with his tails, grabbed her cheek, and pushed her head up. Naruto opened his mouth and lightly bit down on her Adam's apple. He dragged his fangs back, and Naruto felt her whole body shiver. Then Naruto started to kiss his way down her neck but stopped at her shirt. He looked up at her face and saw her red face. Luna looked down at him and nodded. Okay. Naruto pulled her shirt up and saw she wasn't wearing a bra. Her nipples were a bright pink and were erect from her getting turned on. Naruto leaned on too and bit down on her right nipple. Luna loudly moaned, while his hand played with her other breast, and pinched her nipple with his claw. Naruto pulled back and smiled as he looked at her red face and saw her tongue hanging out of her mouth. Naruto's heightened sense of smell noticed a sweet smell in the air. Naruto looked down and saw a wet spot coming from her crotch. Oh, I guess someone likes to be a submissive bitch. Naruto shoved his hand down her pants and felt that she had no panties on. Naruto retraced his claws and rubbed two fingers over Luna's outer lips. Luna howled from the sudden stimulation. But, as Naruto was about to do more to her, they heard the door handle shake. They froze before they heard Blitz's voice. The fuck? I didn't lock this door. Luna, are you in there? Naruto quickly set her down and she pulled her shirt down as Naruto buttoned his shirt. Luna cursed under her breath, grabbed a jacket off a chair, and tied it around her waist before she walked over, unlocked the door, and yelled. Damn it, Blitz, you had to come back now of all times. Blitz's looked confused until he saw Naruto buttoning up his vest. Blitz looked ready to kill Naruto, but Naruto looked Blitz in the eye. His gaze was full of rage. Blitz second-guessed attacking this kid knowing it meant losing more than his business. Naruto. Naruto looked past Blitz and saw Millie, one of his favorite imps of the pain games. Millie? Millie smiled before she rushed into the office and followed back a male imp. He had red skin and white freckles on his cheeks like many imps. His white hair leads to his curvy black and white striped horns. He also has a yellow sclera with black slit pupils. He has a long thin red tail with a barb at the end and lanky digitigrade legs ending in cloven red hooves. He was dressed in a navy black coat with red buttons and white cuffs, black pants, a white shirt with a black turtleneck, a large red bow tie, and fingerless gloves. Naruto. Oh, it's good to see you again. Naruto laughed before he dropped to a knee and hugged Millie before she pulled back and looked up at Naruto. Damn, sweetie, you've gotten big. Where were you when the prince's family came last year but you didn't show up at the games? Naruto laughed as the male imp looked up at him. I've started taking contracts through Blitz there. I was helping Luna and him take out a few beepheads. Millie laughed, then she grabbed the imp beside her. She smiled as she rubbed her cheek on his. This is my Moxie. He's the finest singer and gun user in all the Pride Ring. Naruto smiled before he held a hand out to Moxie. A pleasure, Moxie. I hope you know you got one of the if not the toughest imps in all of hell. Even I have to second guess a fight with her. Moxie smiled, glad to know someone else saw what great Millie was. He shook Naruto's hand before speaking. Thanks, sir, and I know. They let each other hands go. Before Naruto could talk again, his phone started to ring. He pulled his phone out and saw it was Stola calling. He picked up and heard crashing and screaming, but it was getting farther away. Naruto, my boy, you must hide for a few days. Octavia and Stella are tearing the palace apart and I don't know why. I'm heading to the vacation house down in Rathaw. The call cut and Naruto heard him scream, and Naruto felt a chill run down his spine. Naruto put his phone away and then looked at everyone. Does anyone know a good hotel? Stolas said Octavia and Stella are going crazy. You're staying with me. Luna grabbed Naruto and then pulled him to the door. Hell third pub 40 minutes later Luna looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Naruto had told her he was off to get them something from the Asian bar around the corner. Luna smiled as she walked out of the bathroom with a towel wrapped around his neck and smiled at her clothes. She dressed in yoga shorts and a black tank top. I wonder if Naruto would like this, or should I just strip and wait on the bed? Luna stopped when she heard the door open. She smiled when Naruto walked in with 2 bags in his hand. One was from the bar, and the other was from the pharmacy down the street. Luna smiled and walked over and took the bags. You can go relax, Naruto, my room on the right. Naruto thanked her, and he sat on the couch, took his boots and socks off, and sat them beside the couch. Naruto also wondered how long Octavia and Stella would be pissed about something. You got the premium teriyaki chicken rice bowl with California roll. You remembered what I told you over 3 years ago? Naruto smiled as he looked over to open the kitchen. Well, the 2 of you are the only 2 I took the time to know beyond knowing the basics. You love any teriyaki, and I remember you getting California roll more than once. Luna laughed and then walked over with the food on trays. Naruto took the trays with 2 tails, let Luna sit down, and leaned into his side. Naruto held the trays up with his tails. They started eating, and Naruto wrapped an arm around Luna's waist and ate with his other hand. Luna's tail was wrapped around 2 of Naruto's. Luna finished her California rolls before she looked up at Naruto. Hey, can I ask you something? Naruto nodded as he chewed on a California roll. Luna set his fork down and pulled one of the condoms from the pharmacy bag from her top. You want to go at it here or in the bed, 2 days later? Naruto pulled back from his last kiss from Luna for the last time today. He felt like he'd overstayed his welcome but left some money for the pissed off Blitz. Luna had made him sleep in the office for the last 3 days. Now, he was returning to the palace hoping Octavia and Stella had gotten everything out of their system. He also wished to stay a little longer. Luna and Naruto had been fucking almost non-stop, and now he would have to walk into a hornet's nest that he may have to run. When he walked out, he felt like he was being watched. The hair on the back of his neck stood up, and Naruto jumped up, looked down, and saw Stolas coming out of a shadow. Naruto landed on a car and sighed as he looked at Stolas. You scared the fuck out of me, and how the fuck did you do that? Stolas sighed as he walked over and sat down on the car trunk. Naruto jumped down as Stolas spoke. I wanted to get you so I only have to deal with Stella's rage. As Octavia friend, I was going by her kindness back with you. Stolas grabbed Naruto and opened a portal. Naruto froze before he was thrown through the portal and skipped across the ground. A second later, Stolas walked through with Naruto's bike. Naruto groaned as he stood up, holding his head. Naruto. Naruto froze at Octavia's voice and felt fear shoot up his spine. Naruto turned his head and saw Octavia looking down at Naruto from her bedroom window, and she looked mad. Naruto, not wanting to take his chances, jumped into the trees. Naruto hadn't had to use the skills he learned from the scrolls and his demonic chakra to rush through the trees. Naruto wasn't stupid enough to deal with a pissed-off woman. He stopped after a few minutes of running. Naruto jumped high into a tree and sat down. He would talk to Octavia after she calmed down. Naruto. Naruto jumped and looked down at the ground. Octavia and Stolas coming out of the shadow of the trees. In Stolas's hand was his book. That fucking book. Octavia glared up at Naruto. Get down here now. Naruto flinched as Stolas slipped back into a shadow. Naruto planned to get back at him later. Naruto. What did you do with Luna? Naruto sighed as he looked back at Octavia and figured he'd have to play this right to make things go his way. What I do with Luna is none of your business, Octavia. Besides, I like Luna and you didn't help me with that. Octavia glared at him as he spoke. What is that supposed to mean? Naruto jumped down and landed in front of Octavia. Naruto leaned down a little and looked her in the eye, ready to get her and get some frustration out. You know you've clung to me and always pressed your body into mine. Did you not think a fucking 15-year with breasts and an ass like you're always hanging onto a guy all the time would make him horny? I can't even fucking act on it. Sure, Luna did the same, but you know what? I can do stuff with her without a fucking shadow-walking father who'd take my head if I touched her. Look, the two of you are both the best and worst of my life sometimes. At least I got some damn relief with Luna. Octavia blinked and looked away, and rubbed her arm. She knew he was telling the truth but didn't want to admit it. Her anger and jealousy were gone now that she knew Naruto wanted her, but he thought he couldn't touch her body. She also didn't know if she should hate Luna for taking Naruto's virginity or to be jealous that Naruto had taken her first. It's Naruto, I'm sorry I just... Look, you're my closest friend, and it hurt to see you just leave with her and then spend days with her. Tears started to come to her eyes, and Naruto stiffened, not expecting the tears. I mean, I know that you like Luna a lot, but am I here too? Naruto, unprepared for the emotions, sighed and pulled Octavia into a hug. Octavia wrapped her arms around Naruto, not wanting to let him go. Naruto ran a hand down her back and held her head with his other hand. Naruto sighed as Octavia buried her head into Naruto's chest, hiding her tears and the blush. I was going to show my resolve when you came back, but I guess it's too late for that. Naruto decided to throw the mind games out at the broken tone. Well, no, I don't think you know a couple of things. I got a letter from Lucifer that told me about a law that lets the sole survivor of a noble house marry more than one woman. I planned on talking with you and Luna both about it, but well, this all happened. Octavia looked up at Naruto for a second, then jumped up, grabbed him, and took him to the ground. Octavia grabbed Naruto's collar and started to shake him. Are you telling me we've been competing for 2 years for nothing? Naruto, very quickly having enough, decided to take control. Naruto grabbed Octavia's wrists and flipped her over onto her back. Naruto smiled down at her, and Octavia blushed harder as she looked up at Naruto. Well, I didn't get the letter until last week, to be honest. But, I just didn't know how to bring it up without you two suddenly thinking there was a top spot. Now, I need to have this talk with Luna too, but that can wait. Naruto flashed his fangs as he looked down at Octavia's neck. Let's see if he's submissive to me. Naruto leaned down, and Octavia blushed when his fangs touched her neck. Naruto let Octavia's wrist go and pulled Octavia up as he softly chewed on her neck. Octavia cooed from the new stimulation, put a hand on the back of Naruto's head, and pushed him into her neck more. Octavia loved the attention Naruto was giving her. Naruto dug his fangs into Octavia's skin, and Octavia gasped as her feathers fluffed out. Surprised, Naruto jerked his head back and spit out a small feather. Octavia blushed as she looked at Naruto. Octavia jumped on Naruto and grabbed his cheeks before she pushed forward and locked lips with Naruto before they fell back onto the ground. Octavia had waited years for this and wouldn't let Naruto go until satisfied. For his part, Naruto wasn't ready for Octavia to be this aggressive. Still, he was going to make her submissive to him. Naruto grabbed Octavia's hips and flipped them as Octavia opened her mouth, and Naruto took control. Naruto picked her up like a bride, and the kiss broke before Naruto jumped into the trees again. Naruto smiled as he raced them through the trees, then raced along the ground when he hit a gap. Something like what you and I are about to do is best to do in a bedroom. Naruto jumped back into the trees while Octavia smiled as she looked up at Naruto, still smiling as he jumped onto the house's roof. My room or yours? Naruto smiled as he walked over to his side of the house. Naruto looked over and saw his balcony doors were still open. Naruto jumped down onto the balcony. Naruto entered his room and closed and locked the door with his tails. Naruto smiled before he set Octavia down on the bed. Octavia quickly pulled her jacket off as Naruto got his weapons belt off. Naruto smiled as he looked over at Octavia. She wore a nice shirt, torn tight blue jeans, and black leather boots. Octavia already had double D cups at her age, and he smiled as he imagined what she could grow into later. Naruto quickly got his vest and shirt off. Oh my! Octavia looked at Naruto as she looked at his chest. Octavia pressed a hand to his abs and ran her hands on them. Octavia almost always slept next to Naruto but had not seen his chest since first meeting him. She was amazed at how his body had developed. Naruto smiled before speaking up and ran a hand through her head feathers. Octavia moved her up his chest, and she smiled before she pulled her hand away and then pulled her shirt off as she stood up. She had on a bright red bra with lace at the edges. Naruto saw her chest feathers seem pitch black, but she had a large patch of white feathers on her stomach, which went to the underside of her breast. He also saw she had on a bright red thong. Naruto smiled before he grabbed her cheeks and started to kiss her again. After a second, Octavia opened her mouth, and Naruto attacked. Naruto and Octavia lay in bed, falling asleep, but neither noticed a pair of glowing red eyes from the shadows. Then a soft, annoyed feminine groan before they vanished, and Stella stepped out of the shadow next to Naruto's room. Stella couldn't believe she envied the fucking her daughter just had. She groaned as she felt her lower lips quivering. That spark of the boy after the award ceremony lit in her had grown into an inferno after seeing that. Stella started to quickly walk down the hall to get in a cold bath to put that heat out and to try and get that boy out of her head. He was only 15 for Lucifer's sake. Stella stopped and punched the wall before she grabbed the crotch of her dress, her arousal starting to cloud her mind. Damn it. I wanted to be fucked like that too. Why did my daughter have to get a fucking stud and I'm left with a non-romantic fucking limp-beaked bird? Stella punched the wall a few more times, her lust very quickly taking over her mind as she rushed to the nearest bathroom to cool her body down. Naruto groaned. He heard his phone going off as Naruto opened his eye and looked up at the roof of his room. On his chest lay happy Octavia with one of Naruto's shirts on. Naruto reached over to his nightstand and grabbed his phone. Naruto looked at the screen and saw Luna calling him. Naruto picked up as Octavia started to wake up. What's up, Luna? Hey, could we meet up and talk? Oh, and bring Octavia too. Luna spoke in a softer tone than she normally did. Naruto hoped this was the chance he'd been wanting. Naruto shook Octavia, and she woke up and looked at Naruto. Sure, Luna, we'll be there as soon as we can. Octavia nodded and stretched her legs. Thanks, Alpha, I'll have some breakfast waiting for you too. Thanks, Luna. Okay, I'll see you soon, Luna. Luna ended the call, and Naruto sighed as Octavia got up and stretched her arms and back. Naruto smiled as he looked at her heart-shaped ass as she leaned over and pulled some shorts out of her dresser drawer. Naruto got out of bed, walked to his closet, and pulled his white shirt off. Naruto grabbed one of his button-up shirts with a blue vest with a black vest. Then grabbed a pair of black jeans with some socks. Do you want to take the bike or do you want me to call for the driver? Naruto looked over his shoulder at Octavia as she pulled on a pair of shirts. If we all want to go somewhere, the car would be the best. Octavia nodded, and they quickly got dressed. Naruto grabbed his weapons as they left the room. Naruto rested his arm on his swords as they walked to the front of the house. The car pulled around a second later, and they walked down and got into the car. Naruto relaxed into his seat, and Octavia sat in his lap as the car pulled off. The male imp in the front spoke up, knowing these two would talk to him respectfully, unlike the lady of the house. Are we going to miss Luna home again? Naruto nodded as Octavia leaned into his chest. Naruto wrapped Octavia in his tails to act like a blanket to keep her warm. Yes, and thanks for the ride as always, Spikes. Spikes smiled and nodded as he drove out of the estate. Octavia sighed, and Naruto stretched his arms out over the top of the back seats. They rode silently, and Octavia was back asleep comfy in Naruto's hold. She felt safe in his hold and had seen him fight in the last extermination in person instead of having to see it on the news. Naruto had collectively thrashed over 100 angels and 9 high angels. Naruto had set a bar and seemed unreachable for all the other heirs of their generation. Naruto smirked and closed his eyes as he let his mind wander about the time before this life. Naruto's smirk dropped, and a frown crossed his face. All of his memories were of pain and suffering. He'd been forced to live in a village that didn't care about his life. They smiled as he was beaten, stabbed, starved, and attacked by clans. Anger started to radiate from Naruto as he remembered every face of rage as they attacked him. He could only remember 3 people who were ever really nice to him. Only 3 people saw him as a human, not as a demon. But now he was a real demon, loved this life, and would kill them all when he finally got out of hell and back to Konoha. Damn them all. Gigi, you better not get in my way when I return. Octavia's eyes snapped open when she felt enormous bloodthirst in the air. She looked around, then stopped when she looked up and saw a black aura coming off of the tails wrapped around her. She looked up at his face and saw utter rage on his face. Naruto. What wrong? Naruto snapped out of his rage and smiled as he looked down at her. Sorry, I let my mind wander and it went somewhere I don't want it. Octavia frowned, sat up, grabbed his cheeks, and rubbed her thumbs over his whiskers. Octavia gave Naruto a gentle smile as he got out from under all his tails and kissed him on the cheek. It's okay, Naruto. That part of your life is all over and in the past. You have a good life now with those who respect and love you. Naruto nodded and smiled as he wrapped his tails around Octavia again. Octavia cooed as she laid back down into Naruto's chest. Naruto wrapped his arms around her waist. Spikes looked at them in the mirror and smiled. Ah, to be in love. 30 minutes later, Naruto and Octavia approached the door and heard Luna and Blitz going at it. I told you I don't want that fucker here again, Luna. Fuck you. He's my alpha, and whether you like it or not, he's coming here. I have to talk to him about making a pact. Naruto and Octavia looked at one another as Blitz yelled again. What? With who? Who is our business? Deciding enough is enough. Octavia knocked on the door, and the screaming stopped. A second later, the door opened, and Naruto laughed as he Luna at the pissed face of Blitz. Apla. Luna shoved Blitz away from the door and smiled as she saw her alpha again. Octavia was at his side, and Luna was glad to see her for a change. Luna moved aside and welcomed them in. They walked in, and Luna grabbed Blitz and bared her teeth at his as he tried to run. I need the apartment. Go get some food. She threw it into the hall and threw some cash from her pocket. Naruto and Octavia laughed as Luna looked back with a smile. Hey, Alpha, Octavia. You two can have a seat, I got the food in the kitchen. Thanks, Luna. Yeah, thanks. Luna nodded and quickly rushed into the kitchen. Octavia sat down, and Naruto walked over to the kitchen. Naruto saw Luna trying to carry 3 plates of scrambled eggs, toast, and bacon with some juice on the counter. Naruto smiled, walked into the kitchen, and used 3 tails to pick up the plates. Alpha. Naruto smiled as he cupped her cheek, and Luna's tail was wagging like crazy as she leaned into Naruto's hand. Luna loved her alpha's touch. Naruto smiled and kissed her nose quickly before taking the juice cups. No need to try and do it all alone, my pretty little hound. Luna smiled as her tail wagged and followed Naruto to the living room. Naruto stretched out his tails and set everything on the table before Octavia as he and Luna sat down. They all took a plate, and Naruto sighed before he opened the top of his vest and pulled the letter out. He held it out to Luna, and she took it. What is this? A letter from the royal family explaining some stuff and I'm hoping will keep me alive. Luna nodded, took the letter, flipped it open, and read as they ate. Luna hummed as she set the letter on the table and then looked at Octavia. So, is this the deal? Octavia nodded as she sat her fork down. She leaned back into the couch and crossed her arms. It is, and I'm fine sharing with you, Luna. I hate to say it, but I respect your strong will, and you clearly love Naruto as much as me. Luna nodded and then finished eating. Once they were done, a knock came from the front door. Naruto stood up, walked to the door, and grabbed one of his right-side revolvers. Naruto opened the door and stopped seeing the princess of hell herself with her father and mother. Lucifer smiled before he spoke. My boy, it's so good to see you again. I've come to tell you we've found the other 3 candidates, and my daughter, your potential wife, has a gift for you as you are her favorite candidate. Naruto gripped his revolver as he spoke with a smile on his face. Charlie smiled as she pulled a cage hide out from around her back. It was black and red with 2 deep nicks resembling a blade cut on the left side. It had the kanji for wrath written in red on the front. Naruto froze after seeing it. How the? Charlie smiled as she spoke. I used my family's spy demons to go to your old village and see what the strongest ninja used or wore. We found the Hokage was given this one-of-a-kind hat, so I had this one made. Naruto, who is it? Luna and Octavia walked up behind him. Charlie's smile held, but her eye twitched when Luna rested her head on Naruto's shoulder, showing some teeth. She saw a bitch who wanted to take her alpha away from her. Octavia wrapped her arm around Naruto and knew that this bitch would jump at any chance to take Naruto away. Lucifer smiled as he pushed Charlie a little closer. Come now, my boy. My daughter did her best to have this gift made, and I expect to see you wearing it. Or having it when you're walking around like many other cages do. Now, come on and try it on soon-to-be Duke of Wrath. Naruto and Luna growled, and Octavia's eyes glowed as they all knew this wasn't a request but an order. Naruto growled louder and reached out and took the hat. Naruto put it on. His ears went through 2 holes in the top, and the shadow cased over his face made his eye glow brighter, and he looked like he was glaring down at Charlie. Charlie, on the other hand, liked the look in Naruto's eyes. His eyes and the way he stood looking down at her. Well, thanks, my boy. Oh, I also got you a gift as I've been very impressed with your skills. Lucifer pulled out a crimson book with a black fox head. This was Kurama's grimoire. With this, you can start to train in all his powers and his fighting styles. You can also return to your home if you so choose. Naruto's eyes flashed blue briefly, and Lucifer filed that away. Seems there is still some human in him. That may be useful. Naruto smiled as he opened the cover and saw the words were written in a much older demon script. Naruto could read a few parts here and there. Naruto smiled and hummed before he closed the book with a dark smile, his red eyes back and glowing even brighter now. I'm going to murder those fucking fools. Power flowed off him, and his girls and Charlie felt a shiver go up their spines as they felt the waves of power. All of them were turned on as they looked at him. Lucifer and Lilith were both impressed with the rage and power coming from the boy. Hell, 7th year 3rd Pav Naruto smiled as he sat in the garden of Octavia's home, reading what he could with Stella's help. His house would be ready in a few days, and they all made plans for Luna and Octavia to move in. Stella had made Stolas agree, and Luna had forced the fact with her already having trucks to pick up her stuff. Hey Naruto. Naruto looked up from his book and smiled when he saw Octavia with her own grimoire. Dad finally gave me my grimoire, and look, I can already use a spell. Octavia opened her grimoire and then was covered in purple smoke. Naruto's jaw dropped a second later as he looked at a dark-skinned Octave with raven black hair and 2 dark pink highlights. Her eyes had turned a bright red. She looked like she had on black lipstick and had a mole under her left eye. Naruto stood up and looked at her, and Octavia watched as Naruto's eyes turned blue again. Octavia blinked, and they were red again. Octavia grabbed his cheek, and his eye flashed again. Naruto, your eyes are flashing blue. Do you not like my human form? Naruto sighed as he held the hand on his face. No, it's just the past, that's all. I haven't seen a human face in so long, and seeing one again. I guess not all the human is out of me. Octavia smiled as she ran a thumb over his whisker mark. It's fine, Naruto, but maybe you should think about this. Naruto looked down at his book. Octavia and Stella seemed to know what he was thinking. Stella stood up and spoke, a little worried at what Naruto was thinking. Naruto, I know what you're thinking, and I don't think going back is what's best for you. Nodding his head, Octavia's hand fell from his face. No, I think this is what I need. Before I can take on the duties of my role, I need to settle my past before I start down this path. Naruto took a few deep breaths, and his book glowed. Stella reached out, and Octavia stepped back. Naruto, wait. Naruto was engulfed in blue flames, and after they vanished, Naruto looked like a normal human again. Think Naruto Shippuden but dressed in a western dress. Naruto sighed as he opened his eyes, and his bright blue eyes met with Octavia's crimson ones. Naruto reached up and ran his hands over his head, and the ears on his head were gone. Naruto looked back and saw his tails were gone. He couldn't feel the fur he would feel under his shirt, and his claws were gone too. It's strange not to see the tails. I'm coming with you. Naruto looked at Octavia, and she glared back at him. Naruto opened his mouth to argue, but Octavia snapped at him. You're not going back to a place that tried to kill you alone. Naruto flinched and stepped back, remembering that Octavia could be scary when she was mad. Naruto laughed and nodded before he told them he was off to get his bike for a fast getaway if they had to run. When he was back, Stolas was there and held out a contract as he talked with Octavia. When he saw Naruto, Stolas waved him over. Naruto, my boy, I have a job for you too while you're over there. Naruto raised an eyebrow, and Stolas quickly explained that a human family had made a deal long ago and didn't pay, so the clan head was now the only one to collect on. Stolas gave Naruto a demonic seal and told him to attach the seal to the clan head or his heir to finally finish the contract. But Naruto's mind stopped and had an idea and hoped his Gigi was still alive. Naruto opened his book and turned to the page about restoring a body to a younger form. Elemental Nation of Fire 3rd Pav Konoha Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed as he looked up from his paperwork. He leaned back in his chair and looked up at the roof of his office. It had been 7 years since that night. The third Hokage had tried to get over Naruto's death and the return of the damn Namikaze family and his 2 idiotic students. Hiruzen had to clarify that when he allowed them to return to the shinobi forces, they were to follow every order to the letter. Minato and Kushina had fought him because their 2 surviving kids would have to be clan shinobi and would not be allowed into the regular forces. I wish you were still here, Naruto. I would love to have you come bursting through that door again. Hiruzen looked back at the paperwork before a wave of dark chakra hit him. Hiruzen knew that chakra all too well. Anbu. Hiruzen yelled out as he pulled his robes off, showing his old battle gear. The Anbu appeared, and he gave out orders. He felt his rage from that night return to his soul. Get Kushina and Minato. That beast has finally returned, and this time I want it sealed so tight it will never get out again. Yes, sir. They all rushed off, and Hiruzen rushed out of his office but stopped when he didn't see the 9 tails. On the roofs around him were Konoha's shinobi, ready for battle. Hiruzen looked to his side and saw Minato, Kushina, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Mito, and Menma ready for a brutal battle. Kushina looked around, ready to avenge her firstborn. Where is it? After she yelled, a strange sound ripped through the silence throughout the village. The sound was like thunder, and it was getting closer. Anbu at the gate got ready as a shape in a massive dust cloud started to get close to the gates. The Anbu saw there were 2 people. What looked like a strange metal thing was coming at them fast. But, as it got close, it suddenly turned to the right and slowed down. The thing stopped at the gate, and the Anbu saw 1 man and 1 woman on the thing. They both had on blue pants and what looks like leather jackets. But, the man had what looked like a black and red cage hat with 2 deep nicks that looked like a blade on the left side. It was tied to the left side of his jeans with the kanji for rap written in red on the front. A cat-masked Anbu jumped down, sword at the ready to cut either of them down. They both had helmets with what looked like a large sunglass over their faces. Who are you? The man laughed before he spoke. Damn, Nico-chan, you've never held a sword at me before. Cat went stiff, only knowing 1 little boy who ever called her Nico-chan. She lowered her sword as the man reached up to the helmet and pulled it off. Nico dropped her sword as she looked at a pair of bright blue eyes and a head full of spiky blonde hair with whisker marks on his cheeks. Nico only got 1 word out before passing out. Naruto. With the Hokage 2 minutes later, a crane-masked Anbu landed in front of the Hokage and spoke up in a panic. Lord Third, I can't believe it, but it's him, and he's alive. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow before 2 Anbu appeared in front of the ninja. Hiruzen felt his heart stop for a second. In front of him was someone he thought he watched die. His spiky blonde hair, blue eyes, and whisker marks, but that wide smile brought tears to his eyes. Hey, Gigi. Hiruzen, not caring for his station at this moment, jumped forward, grabbed Naruto, and hugged him as tears ran down his face. He held a hand on the back of Naruto's head and had a fist full of his leather jacket. Hiruzen pressed Naruto's chin into his shoulder. Hiruzen clung to Naruto as if he'd vanish if he let go. "Why, you're alive. Naruto." Everyone around stood in stunned silence. Naruto laughed as he hugged his Gigi back and let him cry. "Gigi, look, I understand this a moment many would do anything for, but we got a whole day to talk." Hiruzen stepped back and wiped his eyes before he looked at Naruto, and he was so happy to see that smiling face he'd missed. "What do you mean?" Naruto sighed before Octavia took her helmet off. She was in her human form but with some more pink highlights. "We can't stay in the human world for more than a day or two right now." That snapped Minato out of it, and he spoke up. "What do you mean, human world?" Naruto sighed and ignored Minato. "Gigi, we need to talk, and so you know that those Anbu that night didn't kill me, as you can see. The 9 tails dragged me back to hell with it." Everyone's breath caught as Naruto kept talking. All the ninjas around him listened closely to his words. "I know it sounds crazy, and trust me, it wasn't easy, and I know you all can sense Kurama's chakra." Hiruzen raised an eyebrow, and Naruto realized he'd have to explain that. "I'll explain that when it's just the 3 of us later. Gigi, back to the 3 main reasons why we're here. I rose in the ranks of Hell's demons and gained the ability to travel to the human world once a month for now. Second, someone in Konoha signed a contract for a human soul, and we're here to find the man who was named. As for the last one, I got a gift for you, Gigi." Hiruzen realized what was about to be talked about and grabbed onto Naruto and the young woman who'd come with him. Hiruzen used the Shunshin to take them all to his office. They left behind a stunned army of ninjas, but the Namikaze family and the 2 Sannin rushed off, knowing they'd be in the Hokage office. Third Pav Homage office. Hiruzen looked at Naruto, a smile on his face as he looked at the boy. Then he frowned, knowing those fools that should have been Naruto's family would be coming soon. Quickly forming hand signs, Hiruzen sealed the room before he sighed, then looked at his missing grandson in all but blood. "Naruto, you've no idea the weight off my heart to know you didn't die that night, but I must know why you and the Kyuubi's chakra appeared simultaneously." Naruto smiled before he nodded his head and waved his hands down. "Easy, Gigi, your heart doesn't need to be stressed. Now, what you felt was like Kyuubi's power, but it's not chakra. It's yokai or demonic energy. It's 100 times stronger than chakra, and that is what we used to open up the portal to get here. Plus, I've been in hell this long, so my body adapted to it, and I can use it the same as my girl here." "Oh, right." Naruto wrapped an arm around Octavia's waist. Octavia blushed as she rested her head on Naruto's shoulder. "This is Princess Octavia Gosha of the Gosha family, one of my 2 girlfriends." Hiruzen's jaw dropped as he looked at Naruto. Hiruzen nodded before he sat down in his chair, his battle armor feeling heavier. He reached into his top drawer and pulled out his pipe and the tobacco. "Gigi." Hiruzen held a hand up after packing down the tobacco and lit it. He took a few deep puffs, then breathed it out of his nose. He took the pipe out of his mouth and breathed the rest of the smoke. Hiruzen looked at Naruto, then nodded his head to the side. Naruto looked over and saw a couch. Naruto let go of Octavia and grabbed the side of the couch. He pulled it over, and Hiruzen nodded, and they sat down. Hiruzen took another puff before he spoke. "Tell me everything." Naruto and Octavia then spent 5 hours explaining everything to Hiruzen. They only stopped twice as someone tried to force their way into the office before getting started and when 2 Anbu brought them dinner. Naruto smiled, seeing the extra-large bowl of miso ramen from Ichiraku Ramen. Once it was all said and done, Hiruzen sat back in his chair and looked at Naruto. His second girlfriend, Octavia, was asleep with her head on his lap, and he'd covered her with his jacket. Hiruzen set his pipe down and looked at Naruto, the orange glow of the light filling the room. Naruto smiled as he rested a hand on Octavia's shoulder. Hiruzen sighed, getting Naruto's attention as he stood up. "I'll have this motorcycle brought to my clan's compound. I have a few guest rooms ready, and seeing as you are already physical with her, you 2 will stay in the same room." Naruto nodded and picked Octavia up, and she groaned before she grabbed onto her shirt. Naruto smiled as he looked down at her sleeping face. Hiruzen unsealed the room, and they walked out into the hall, but Naruto stopped when he saw 2 heads full of red hair. They were both female, but the older one looked overjoyed to see him. The younger one looked at him with some wonder and seemed to have her guard down. Two blondes looked like him, but the younger one had red ends like Naruto did in his demon form. Naruto really looked at the older blonde and couldn't help but see an older version of himself. Behind them were two other people. A much older man with long white hair was dressed like a hermit, and a woman Naruto could tell was hiding her age or form, given the energy coming off her. Naruto grabbed Octavia a little tighter and dropped into a slightly lower stand. He could get a powerful kick in if he had to. I thought Ambu told you to leave this tower. Naruto looked at his Gigi out of the corner of his eye and then back to this ninja. Naruto readied for a fight. Gigi, is this kill or cripple if they get close? The older blonde took taken aback, and the older red looked hurt. The two teens looked shocked, and the two in the back looked ready to jump in. Hiruzen smirked as he looked at Naruto from the corner of his eyes. As much as I'd like to let you tear them apart, this isn't the time, Naruto. Let's head off to my clan compound. You're free to deal with these people as you see fit when your hands are free. Hiruzen put a hand on Naruto's shoulder, and they vanished, leaving a saddened family and godparents behind. Minato clenched his fist as he looked where the son they thought was dead stood a second ago. That son looked at his family like possible enemies. He may not have known he was looking at his family, but it still hurt. But what hurt more was that he'd asked if he could kill them if he had to. Minato looked at his wife and saw tears in her eyes as she looked at where their lost son stood. Minato, at least head home for now. We'll head to Sensei's house first thing tomorrow morning. I'll also summon Ma and Pa. This may be the chance we need to finally fix everything. Minato looked at his teacher and nodded, seeing his point. Kushina, for her part, wanted her son to come home with her, and she wanted to know who that girl was. At the Sarutobi clan compound, Hiruzen, Naruto, and Octavia appeared in front of the compound. Hiruzen smiled as he led the way. They quickly made their way to the guest room, and Naruto put Octavia to bed. Once she was in bed, Naruto walked out of the room and back to the living room when he saw Hiruzen and his wife, Bawako, at his side. She smiled at Naruto, and he remembered her giving him clothes and a little cash every so often. Okay, I guess one more is okay. Naruto smiled before he looked at them. Hey, you two. Sorry if this leaves you a little shocked. They looked at Naruto for a second before Naruto slammed a hand into both of their stomachs, and bright blue flames engulfed the both of them. Naruto pulled his hands back and smiled when he felt the two chakra energy suddenly spiking. The clan's ninja came through the front door a few seconds later as the flames burned out. Naruto smiled as he looked at the couple in front of him. Standing there in their late 20s again was Hiruzen and Bawako Sarutobi. Mom. Dad. Hiruzen looked down at his hands to see how burned he was and saw they were no longer a pale shade of his skin tone. Then he reached up to his face and touched his face. The wrinkles were gone, and he felt the smooth, soft skin. Then he looked at his wife and saw she looked just like before their wedding day. Hiruzen then looked back, smiling as he spun a knife Hiruzen hadn't known he had. Gigi. I told you I had a gift for you. All the ninjas looked at Naruto, wondering how he could do something like this. In hell, there is a way to restore a body to return to its prime. That was my gift to you and your wife. You spent your life protecting this village and your family with all the strength and willpower you had. You've seen it through 3 wars and sufferings. You saw its joys and were lucky enough to watch your family grow. Then you and your wife showed a little boy who had nobody what it felt like to have a family. This is my way of giving back to you, Gigi. Leave the office of Hokage to another and live out this new life by making more joyful memories. Hiruzen Sarutobi, 3rd Hokage, the professor and most honored shinobi no kami. The only man I'd acknowledge as a true shinobi. Hiruzen and all the other ninjas looked at Naruto as he grabbed the knife's handle. He spun the knife one last time, and the knife vanished. The ninja didn't see the small seal on the side of the glove. Naruto turned around and waved as he started back down the hall. I'm going to bed, Gigi. Don't have too much fun now that you two are young again. Naruto stopped and looked over his shoulder with an evil smile Hiruzen knew too well. Or are you still going to read that orange book you like to keep on you? Naruto laughed when his Gigi yelled in pain as his wife screamed and punched him. Naruto rushed off laughing as he listened to the calls for help and the sounds of fists and feet landing on flesh and armor. Naruto laughed more as he opened the door and stopped seeing Octavia standing at the window. She stripped and was in her shirt and a pair of shorts. Octavia smiled as she looked back as Naruto closed and locked the door. It's a beautiful night. The sky is clear, and I can see all the stars. Naruto smiled as he wrapped his arms around her and looked out the window. As he heard his Gigi running past the door screaming for mercy. Naruto and Octavia laughed as they heard Bawako come running, screaming to get back here. Octavia leaned back into Naruto's chest and spoke up as she grabbed his hand. You know he will get back at you for that. Naruto laughed as he freed his hands and wrapped an arm around her waist. Naruto led her to the bed, and Octavia climbed back in. Naruto quickly undressed and summoned a set of night clothes. He got the shirt and sleep pants on and climbed into bed. Octavia quickly cuddled into Naruto's chest and laid her head on his shoulder. Naruto smiled as he watched Octavia close her eyes as she started falling back asleep. Naruto sighed before he tapped his belt, and one of his 2 guns came out. Naruto grabbed the gun and slipped it under his pillow. Naruto may have been in one of the safest places in the village, but Naruto knew better than most about this village. Naruto closed his eyes, and soon he was asleep to the sound of Bawako catching his Gigi from the cry of pain. Next morning Naruto and Octavia lay in bed asleep. But, too soon, a few knocks came from the door. Octavia groaned, and Naruto opened his eyes when he heard Hiruzen's voice. Naruto, Lady Octavia, breakfast is ready. Quote. Octavia groaned again as she opened her eyes and looked at the door with hate. Naruto laughed and Naruto patted her back before she huffed, and they got out of bed. Naruto smiled as he got up behind Octavia as she pulled her nightshirt off. Naruto kissed the back of her neck, and Octavia shivered. Octavia smiled, turned in Naruto's arms, and kissed Naruto's lips. She pulled back, and Naruto hummed as he ran his hands up Octavia's sides. If only we had the time. Naruto nodded and gave her one more kiss before they let go of each other. Octavia was dressed in a short that hugged her breast and stomach. She had put on some tight, dark blue jeans with a pair of knee-high boots. She'd pulled her hair back and tied it in a long ponytail. Naruto had dressed in a simple black long-sleeve button-up and rolled up the sleeves. He had on a pair of relaxed-fit jeans and put his boots on. Naruto tied the Wrath Cage hat on his side out of habit. Naruto ran his fingers through his hair as Octavia unlocked the door, and Naruto followed her out. They walked down the hall and into a kitchen to the laughing family as Hiruzen and his wife danced around with their son Asuma laughing as he watched them. Come on Hiruzen, we're not seniors anymore, you don't have to act like a cracked glass anymore. Hiruzen laughed as he spun her around. Naruto laughed, and Octavia leaned into Naruto's side as they watched them dance. Asuma laughed more, then saw Naruto and Octavia standing in the doorway. He calmed down a second later and then spoke as he looked at them. Good morning you two. Come and get some food. Asuma smiled, glad to see the young man who'd given his father a second chance at life. Naruto nodded, and Octavia stood back up and walked over to the table. Hiruzen dipped his wife, and she laughed as he pulled her back up. Hiruzen and Bawako were living it up again now that they were young. They hugged, and Hiruzen smiled as he saw Naruto and Octavia sitting down at the table, making plates. Hiruzen smiled as he spun Bawako one last time before he kissed her cheek, and they finally moved to sit down. Naruto smiled as he looked at his Gigi as he made a plate. Naruto rested his chin on his hand as he looked at his Gigi. Having fun, old man. Naruto smirked, and Hiruzen laughed as he looked at Naruto. Yes, to think I would be able to move like I used to. To dance around with my wife like this again. Naruto smiled as he leaned back into his chair with a cup of milk in his hand. Yeah, plus that's not even my best trick. Hiruzen smiled hearing that before a maid walked into the kitchen and bowed. Lord Hokage, the Namikaze family and the Sanins are here and wish to speak with you, Sir Naruto and Lady Octavia. I've placed them in the clan training hall as it is a group larger than normal group. Hiruzen smiled, turned to an angry scowl, and leaked a little key. Naruto, noticing this, quickly stood and ran his hands over his belt. His gun belt appeared with both guns holstered, and his sword appeared in his other hand. Naruto quickly put the second belt around his waist, and his smile was gone too. Gigi, if these family is like the ones in hell, I'll attack head on and come from behind. Hiruzen laughed and nodded, then waved his hand. Asuma quickly got up and vanished to get ready and get some of their clan's shinobi ready. Naruto looked down at Octavia as Bawako was speaking to her. If something happens, don't worry, our clan will defend you two to death if need be. Octavia smiled, knowing she could handle herself, but was glad not all humans weren't fools. Soon, Hiruzen, Naruto, and Octavia all walked to the training hall. Hiruzen used a henge to make himself look old, not wanting to let them know of Naruto's powers. Hiruzen opened the door, and they walked in to see the group sitting on the edge of the wooden ring around the dirt ring. Naruto and Octavia sat down as far as they could. Naruto had a gun out and spun it on his finger as he stood ready to fight. Octavia happily sat on Naruto's lap and had two knives strapped to her thigh. Naruto also noticed the shinobi were all looking right at him and Octavia. Hiruzen cleared his throat, getting the attention of the people he hated. So what do you want? Minato spoke for the group, hoping this would stay civil. So, deciding not to go directly to the topic of Naruto and that young woman. Well, we'd like to know what Naruto meant about being dragged to hell by the Nine Tails. Naruto narrowed his eyes, and Octavia grabbed his hand when he pulled the hammer back with his thumb. Octavia took the gun away and sat it down on her lap. Octavia wanted to know what these humans wanted from her Naruto. Minato noticed how fast she took that metal item and guessed it was a weapon. Naruto sighed as he wrapped his arms around Octavia's stomach and leaned back and relaxed his back on the wall. Naruto spoke in a slow and annoyed voice. Kurama used the last of his soul to take me there after the ninja. Without his power, he was breaking parts of his own soul off to heal and maintain my body due to the fact I was near starved all the time. Restaurants and stores wouldn't sell me food and healed me after I was attacked. I was stabbed, sliced, beaten, and used for fucking jutsu practice. Minato raised his hand as if trying to protect himself from something. He wasn't ready for the rage that came from Naruto or the hate in his eyes. At his side, Kushina looked away, not able to look her son in his eyes. Mito and Menma were angry not at Naruto but at what he'd been forced to become. They'd been told their brother was dead, and now here he sat away from his family with a woman on his lap with weapons ready to attack them. They hated the fact they couldn't be mad at him for doing what he had to live. Jiraiya and Tsunade looked at the young man, both upset with the rage that filled the boy's voice. They'd hoped this would go so differently. Kushina clenched her fist and spoke, wanting to know what he would do if he knew he had a family. What would you do if you had a family? Would you be willing to listen to the reasons they may have left you? Naruto and Octavia narrowed their eyes, both seeing right through this question. Naruto decided to stab and twist the knife, spoke. I'd deal out all the damage I've endured to my parents. Kill anyone who tried to help them and give any sibling I may have a quick and painless death. Kushina grew pale with each word. Her son hated her so much that he wanted her to endure the same pain. Minato shivered, realizing that their mistake had made a monster. Mito and Menma felt cold as they looked at their brother. Jiraiya and Tsunade stood up, ready to attack, but Hiruzen stood and glared at them with a power they'd not seen in years. They all stopped when they heard laughing. They all looked at Naruto as Octavia gave back his gun and holstered it as they stood. Naruto dusted himself off before smiling at the people in the room. But, Gigi told me they died fighting Kurama, so that bit of nasty business won't come to pass. But, now that this is done, I have a soul to collect and get back to hell tomorrow. As the new Duke of Wrath, I'll have to handle the business of reforming the demon army of Wrath and get them set up with arms and homes. Naruto, wait. Naruto stopped and looked back at his Gigi. Minato saw this and knew Hiruzen was the key to getting Naruto to listen. If you mean what I think you do by collect, then you will wait for me outside the door. Naruto growled and nodded before he spoke. Okay, Gigi, but if I don't get that soul, my own will be attacked and controlled if I come back without it. I like being able to think and move of my own free will, Gigi. Hiruzen frowned upon hearing that, but Octavia smirked and spoke up. Naruto, you can relax, it's not like you're going to kill the guy. You just had to place the sigil and that's it. He'll live his life, then his soul will be pulled down to hell. Naruto snorted as he opened the door. Octavia, you don't know this place. There are very few people here. I mean, who sells their soul and the souls of their clan to make their fucking bloodline stronger? Who in their right mind would want to do that to their eyes anyway? Naruto and Octavia walked out into the hall, leaving the shocked Shinboy behind. They knew this meant the Uchiha or Hyuga made a deal with demons for power. Hiruzen sighed, then let his ki flare as he glared at Minato and Kushina. This is an order. You will stay away from him and not come near unless I call for you. Kushina glared, and her own ki flared. You can do that. Hiruzen, not caring, dropped his henge, shocking everyone as he yelled, his ki reaching levels it hadn't in decades. Tsunade and Jiraiya were shocked to see his young body again. That boy is lost to you, give up. Hiruzen walked to the door and slammed it shut, leaving the shocked family behind. 2 hours later, Naruto, Octavia, and Hiruzen stood outside the Uchiha compound with a unit of Anbu at their backs. Naruto had shown the contract to his Gigi and Hiruzen. Not wanting to lose, the whole clan marched into the Uchiha compound. They marched up to the house, and Hiruzen was met with the wife of the current clan heads. Makoto Uchiha and the woman looked scared as Hiruzen stopped in front of her. Makoto, get Fugaku, this is business that threats the Uchiha as a whole. Makoto nodded and quickly rushed off into the house. A few seconds later, Fugaku rushed back out with Makoto and their 2 sons behind them. Sasuke Uchiha and Itachi Uchiha. Naruto sighed and pulled the sigil and contract out of his pocket. Naruto walked up with Octavia at his side. The 2 elder Uchiha quickly recognized the blonde. Gigi can explain in more detail later, but you need to read this now, then I need to do. Fugaku looked at Naruto, then grabbed the contract and opened it. Fugaku started to read, and as he did, Naruto noticed the younger teen son looking at Octavia's chest. Naruto stepped in front of Octavia, and Sasuke looked Naruto in the eye with a scowl. Fugaku looked up, paled-faced, as Naruto spoke. Look at my girl's chest again and I'll introduce you to the pavement real quickly. Sasuke scoffed and Naruto rested a hand on his belt, and just like he expected, Sasuke threw a punch a second later. Naruto caught the punch and then pulled down on Sasuke's arm. Naruto threw his knee up into Sasuke's jaws, and his head flew back. Naruto pulled his arm as blood ran out of the corner of his mouth. Naruto kicked Sasuke's stomach and sent him flying back. Sasuke skipped across the road before he face-planed the street. The Uchiha around them looked on in shock as Makoto rushed over. Not caring, Naruto grabbed Fugaku's collar and pulled him close, his face still pale. Listen now, you know what your father did. Now, I can put the sigil on you only, or I can sigil one of your sons to pay the price. Fugaku nodded as he looked at Naruto, not wanting one of his sons to go to hell no matter what. With a smile, Naruto pulled out the sigil and pulled out Fugaku's Jonin jacket and shirt. Naruto slammed the sigil into the center of his chest, and Fugaku screamed as blue flames erupted from the sigil. After a few seconds, the flames died, and Naruto dropped him to the ground. Hiruzen raised his hand, and the Anbu vanished, leaving the Uchiha compound grounds. Naruto and Octavia smiled at their job being finished. They could do what they wanted now that the job was done. Naruto wrapped an arm around Octavia's waist, and they turned to walk away. Naruto, my boy. Naruto looked back and saw Hiruzen holding out a large stack of cash. Naruto looked at Hiruzen, and he smiled. It's money I had put away for when you graduated from the Ninja Academy. There is enough money to pay for a 3-bedroom apartment for half a year. Take Lady Octavia out for a day on town. Octavia took the money and slipped it into her jacket inside her pockets. Naruto looked at Octavia and smiled. Octavia narrowed her eyes before she spoke. If you want her to come up, I get to decide where we go on the next 4 dates. Naruto smiled wider and spoke up. 3, and once we're back home, I'll have a whole palace wing converted for you. We do have 10 wings, after all. Octavia smiled and nodded before she pulled her hellphone out. Everyone watched what it was as she tapped her fingers on it quickly. A few minutes later, a blue hole opened, and a girl quickly rushed out. She was a girl with a body that, like Octavia, put any woman from Konoha to shame. Her long, sliver hair hung free with a black lace bow around her neck. She was in a pair of tight jean booty shorts with long black leggings on. She had on a mid-cut red jacket over a gray and purple shirt. She had white tennis shoes on her feet. Her eyes were a bright red with slits in the center. Luna looked around for a second and smiled when she saw Naruto. Alpha. Luna rushed over and tackled Naruto to the group. Hiruzen laughed as he watched Naruto getting kissed to near death on the ground. The men around them all felt intense jealousy as they watched Octavia grab Luna's jacket and start pulling her off Naruto, yelling that she could have her turn later tonight. Naruto laughed as he picked himself and Luna up, and she jumped onto his back. Naruto wrapped his forearms around Luna's hips, and Octavia leaned into his side as they walked. 2 hours later, in a clothing store, Luna and Octavia were having a fun time trying these kimonos and some ninja-style battle kimonos. Luna, for her part, loved a short thigh-high kimono with a black sash that showed her hips off, and she could leave just open enough to show off for Naruto. Octavia, for her part, fell in love with a kimono that showed the night sky with a light blue sash. She also left her kimono top open to show some skin off to Naruto. They'd bought them, and Octavia had the head of the shop help her pin her hair up. Luna left her legging on and bought a pair of sandals to walk around the village in. They walked back out onto the street. Naruto smiled as Luna held Naruto's right arm to her chest, and Octavia held Naruto's left hand. "How many are still following us?" Naruto hummed before he spoke. "I'd say there are 20 on the roofs and a few plain clothes following on the ground. But the old guy from this morning is trying to keep about 15 feet behind us." Luna looked at Naruto out of the corner of her eye at Naruto. She leaned her head on Naruto's shoulder and spoke quietly. "The guy from the meeting you told me about. I still can't believe your parents were alive and fucking siblings. To think they just abandoned you like they did. And this guy, is he a danger to us?" Naruto grunted as they walked. "He'd be a headache at best and a nuisance at worst. I could always shoot him if he gets on our nerves too much." Octavia laughed as she covered her mouth, and Luna smirked as she bumped hips with Naruto. Naruto felt him getting closer, and Naruto growled and squeezed their hands. "Meet me at the Hokage Tower in the center of the village." They let him, and they kept walking to the tower, and Naruto turned around. Naruto was met with the sight of the man he knew was meant to be something to him before it all happened. Naruto reached down and unclipped the button that held his guns in as he locked eyes with Jiraiya. "You know in hell I'd already have finished you off for following me. But I got my girls with me, you old pervert. You must have a death wish if you're doing that." Jiraiya frowned and sighed as he crossed his arms. "I didn't mean to make you think I was a threat. Naruto, I understand why you have so much anger toward Konoha and how you were treated. No child should have had to endure that kind of treatment. I know I don't have the right to ask this, but I am. Please come to the Namikaze compound this evening. You can bring those girls. There are things you need to know." Naruto snorted before he drew his guns and pulled the hammers back. Jiraiya, hearing the clips, got worried. But Naruto nodded, then let the hammers back down and holstered his guns. "You're not worth the ammo, Jiraiya of the Sannin. I very quickly figured out who those four were by the looks alone. Then there was the desperate question of Kushina's. I got your names by listening as we walked around. People are saying all kinds of things." Naruto laughed at the shocked look on Jiraiya's face. "I have no want to know those people or you too. They threw that chance away a lifetime ago. So, I will not give the time nor the effort to even talk to them. I am lost to them and you too because I will never let any of you be a part of my life. You all will live the rest of your days wondering what could have been. What your lives could have been like. Just like I had to as a child when I dug through the trash to find something to eat. Why didn't I have a mom and dad to take care of me? To rarely ever get a real meal. To know what it's like to know a warm house filled with love waiting for me. I didn't get that until I was dragged down to hell. Do you know what it's like to worry about the next beating or the next nightmare-inducing ninja attack? To hide under a pile of cardboard and plastic to stay warm and out of the rain the night you're thrown out of the orphanages." Jiraiya was unsure what to say as he watched Naruto spit on the ground before speaking again. "I will not listen to you or them again, now get out of my sight." Jiraiya frowned and looked Naruto up and down quickly, judging he could use force as long as Naruto couldn't get those things off his side. He could deal with the swords. Jiraiya lunged at Naruto, moving to knock him out so he could take him so Minato could make him understand why they did this. Naruto stepped back, grabbed his demonic sword, and started drawing it. Jiraiya. An Anbu with silver-spiked hair appeared behind Jiraiya, and Naruto looked at the dog mask. Naruto recognized the Anbu. He grabbed the back of Jiraiya's head and his jacket. He slammed Jiraiya down to the ground as 5 other Anbu appeared, cuffed Jiraiya, and vanished, leaving the dog behind. He looked at Naruto, and Naruto let his sword go and smiled. "Been a while, Aniki." Kakashi felt his heart stop for a second, not expecting Naruto to still call him that. Kakashi was not sure what to say or do. Naruto smiled. "Go to Gigi and tell him I want to see you unmasked, Aniki. I'd love for my big brother to meet my girls. Oh, and bring Nico-chan. I have gifts for the 2 of you like I did for Gigi." Kakashi smiled under his mask and nodded before jumping away to get the Hokage as fast as possible. Naruto laughed as he walked past the stunned and shocked villagers. Many wanted to say sorry to him, but all were scared after seeing him ready to fight the Toad Sannin. Naruto smiled as he quickly walked down the road. After a few minutes, Naruto heard a fight and quickly started to rush down the road, seeing it was in front of the Hokage Tower. Naruto drew his swords as he jumped over a crowd, ready to fight, but stopped seeing Octavia and Luna beating some young-looking shinobis around. Naruto watched as Luna slammed a large white dog's head down onto the ground. For her part, Octavia had what looked like the last standing shinobi in her hands, choking him out. The ninja had what looked like 2 red fangs on his face with brown hair. He had some dark clothes on with a black jacket on. Naruto looked down and saw most of them had the same marks, and there were a lot of dogs around too. Octavia threw the shinobi away as Luna looked up at Naruto and smiled. Alpha. Luna stomped down on a dog's head that tried to get up. Luna jumped onto Naruto and wrapped her legs around his stomach. The bottom of the kimono was pulled up, showing off the jean shorts she wore under the short bottom. Naruto laughed as he dropped his swords and then grabbed her thighs as she wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck. You missed all the fun. The one Octavia was choking out grabbed her after she told him to fuck off. Naruto nodded, and Luna gave him a quick kiss before Naruto let her down as Anbu appeared around the downed ninja. They seemed to not care what happened as they quickly started cuffing the ninja and muzzling the dogs. They had quickly taken them away as a man appeared dressed in Jonin gear with a face mask and one eye covered. At his side was Nico-chan. Naruto smiled as he reached down and grabbed his swords. He sheathed them and then tapped 2 spots on his sides. Now for the gifts. 2 gifts appeared in Naruto's hands. A black bag hung on his right hand and a beautifully crafted katana with a dark blue sheath with an upside-down cross pattern in his left. Naruto threw the sword over to Nico-chan, and she grabbed the sword, happy to see the gift. She drew her new sword and was shocked at the quality of the sword. Then she froze as she watched the sword turn black with a blue edge. Kakashi was also shocked seeing the black and blue. So a water attribute. My Nico-chan, you will put that sword to good use. Naruto then looked at Kakashi and waved for him to follow him. Kakashi walked closer, and Naruto wrapped an arm around his neck. Naruto pulled him away from all the women, not wanting to get his ass kicked or at least have a head start. Naruto remembered the book Aniki loved. Naruto opened the bag and showed off the 2 stacks of the best straight porn magazines still in the black plastic and brand new porno novels. I know about the porn you used to read when I was a kid, Aniki. Kakashi blushed and started to sweat, not knowing Naruto knew about still like that as a kid. Hell is some of the hottest hotties you'd ever see. I've got my hands on some of the best material from all 9 rings of hell. Naruto laughed evilly as Kakashi, curious, picked the top magazine. Naruto smiled as he put the latest edition of Hell's hottest female celebrities on top. Kakashi ripped off the front plastic and was blown back with one of the nosebleeds of his life. Kakashi slammed down onto the ground, face atomic red. Naruto grabbed the magazine as it fell and was glad he had bought a copy. On the cover page, none other than Verasika Mayday. She was dressed in a slutty see-through night lace with 2 white X's over her large F-cup tits and wide heart-shaped ass. She had a sting-thin thong with a white wings heart tattoo above her covered folds. Her tail was wrapped around a pole, and her wings and legs spread as she looked at the camera while biting her lower lip. Damn, that is one hot succubus. Maybe I should try and meet her. Naruto saw a large shadow beside him and looked behind him. Hiruzen stood there blushing and sputtering, Kakashi holding himself up with a stick. Naruto smirked, seeing him reaching for the bag like a shaking hand. Naruto wrapped an arm around Hiruzen and saw the woman looking at them. He smiled as he showed his Gigi Kakashi's gifts. Hiruzen turned red before. Like Kakashi, he was blown back with a massive nosebleed. But, unlike Kakashi, Hiruzen was already trying to get the bag away from Kakashi as Naruto slipped the magazine back in. Naruto laughed as the 2 perverts ran off. Oh, souls so easily tempted. Naruto smiled and turned around with his arms behind his back. Naruto only had 2 people left to thank and give his last 2 gifts to give to. Who wants lunch? Luna and Octavia smiled, then said goodbye to the Anbu as they quickly rushed up to Naruto's sides. Naruto led the way to the Ichiraku ramen stand, smiling as they walked. Luna and Octavia were happy with the normal Naruto coming back out. Naruto smiled as he stopped in front of the stand. Never thought I would stand in front of this place again. Naruto stepped forward and opened the flaps. Luna and Octavia followed him in. Hey, old man, I need 3 large bowls of miso ramen. There was a bang from the kitchen, then they heard the rushing of feet. Tucci and Ayame rushed out of the back kitchen, and Ayame looked at Naruto's smile. Ayame and Tucci rushed around the counter, and both hugged Naruto tightly. They were crying tears of joy, glad to see someone they thought of as family was still alive. Ayame spoke as she cried into Naruto's shoulder. I thought that was just a cruel rumor, that you were alive, Naruto. Naruto laughed, patted Ayame's head, and rubbed Tucci's back. Luna and Octavia were smiling, seeing some humans really did care. After a few minutes, Tucci pulled away and smiled as he wiped his tears away and looked at Naruto. You said 3 large bowls of miso ramen. I'll have them out in a minute. Anything for our #1 customer. Naruto laughed, and Ayame pulled back and looked up at Naruto with a smile. Do you still want it with extra ham? Yeah, but I have gifts for you. Naruto tapped his belt, and a large sack came out. Naruto held it out, and Ayame took it and pulled the edge of the sock out. Her eyes flew open, and she smiled, seeing the gold inside the sack. The old man's gift is in the box at the bottom. Ayame smiled and then rushed back into the kitchen. Naruto, Luna, and Octavia all sat down and talked. After a few minutes, Ayame and Tucci all walked out with 3 large bowls. They set the bowls down, and Naruto smiled as she picked up his chopstick. The girls followed, and they all broke their chopsticks and spoke together. Thanks for the food. To be continued. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.